one name. Okay, even if it's the name you have always wanted somebody to call you, not babe. Not babe, we refuse babe. But please, a name Zezefania, wanakuitaje huko mtaani huko. Wanajua tu hapa sasa mzee wa kazi ameingia. Mzee wa kijiji wanakuitaje? Ama nakuita bulldozer ikiwa wewe ni unawaogopesha. Here, there's a space here. Yes. Please, so you're going to be my helper today. And I'm going to stress you a little bit, but it's okay, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Are we ready with our names? Yani ndugu ndio bado registration. Pendo. Tutakoma basi. Asante Pendo. Let me get, I think masking tape, is it the pins or the masking tape? Sharon, please open this GST pin thing. Rachel, where is your name? Here. Please write. I can see. Bus. It's okay. I know the meaning. I know the meaning. I know the meaning. The pen, the marker pens. Here you are. Tie. I like it. I know tie. I've just remembered Emiko's gay. Yani ndio hapo sasa. Mr. Nice, wapi Mr. Nice. Umetudanganya hapo, umetunyoa bila maji, but sawa tu Mr. Nice, sawa. Kasha. There's a Kasha from Uganda that I really like. She's called Kasha Who, the one who leads the LGBTI community. She's a strong woman. She's part of the LGBTI community. She's called Kasha Who. My dear. They call you that. In English, but in Luganda. In your language, what is it? You see me, I put in my language. Put in yours. Don't translate it. You know me, if I was to translate, you see all the adjectives that she brought out. They would not fit. Put in your language. Yes. Where is yours, mommy? No. But I haven't heard the Kasuku talking. So I have to challenge you. Where is yours? Okay. Yeah. You want another one? It's messed up. You've realized you have many names. You want to choose the best. We thank God for that. I got smaller cards, but it's okay. Hey. Sawa. Igo wako wengi. Ruhi. Princess, for real. As in for real. Sounds like babe to me. You join. Are we already? We've joined them. They are already. Ladies and gentlemen, may we stand? May we stand? May we stand as we thank God again for the second day of this very important meeting. I love it. We are grateful. We are glad that we are all here. You can see names that you have never heard before. You can see Ruhi. You can see, hey, people are hiding. Let me just see. It's okay. It's okay. Let me see. Let me just see. I've seen Katunda. I've seen Abo. Hey, Abo. Are we saying? Pendo. We've seen Kaki. We've seen Jonju. Apuli. What does Apuli mean? Is the what? Is a puppy. So we are going to go around very quickly and you just say, Apuli means puppy. Let's go.
I go around.
Yes.
Apuli means puppy.
Puppy.
Pendo means love.
Pendo means love.
Jonju is a nickname.
Jonju is a what? It's a nickname. What does it mean?
It's the combination of two names, Jovin and Juno.
Jonju. What is his name?
Kaki means get him.
Kaki means?
Get him.
Get him. Wow. That's nice.
Naship-
Name?
Nashipaim.
Nashipai.
Nashima means the happy one.
The happy one means the happy one. Shuja.
Mine is Shuja. It means brave or something.
Brave.
Yeah.
Hero. Heroine.
Yeah.
Nasieku is a Maasai name that means one who comes and does her things very fast and moves on.
Yeah. And tell us if you're pronouncing right.
Mine is Amot.
Amot.
It's a pet name in our areas, but it means a table flower.
A table?
Flower.
A table flower.
Yeah.
Amoti.
Yes.
Can I get that name also?
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tai.
Tai means front or eagle.
It means
Always on the front
always in front.
or an ego. An ego.
Eagle.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Bwana, husband. Yes.
Who calls you that?
My grandmother used to call me so. And then it's everywhere now.
It's from the grandmother. Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Ziko.
Siku.
Ziko.
Siku. Mtu wa siku hizi wa mabadiliko. Yes.
Mine, yes, my dad could call me Robi Wankanga. Wankanga means that ile kanga, ule ndege. I think it's coinciding with even the colors I'm wearing. That bird has these colors in my. It is. I've tried consulting here. Kanga is. Yes, I was so fast, very bearable. You know, Kanga can sleep anywhere on the trees. So really, my dad I'm very flexible. So my dad used to call me Robi Wankanga. Yeah, so, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the name that I inherited from my grandfather. Yes. You know Tangawis, but it's a bit different because it means doing business, the barter trade one, exchanging goods for goods.
Oh, Kiswahili. Okay.
In our language, local language.
Which is your local language?
Sukuma.
Sukuma.
Yes.
That's nice. Yeah, that's what like I did and I saw tea. Yeah.
Recognize is just nice.
Mr. Nice.
And nice is just nice. Yeah. My daughters. Yes.
That's good. You know when your daughters call you that it's an affirmation, you're doing something right. Okay? Kasha.
Yes, Kasha means clear.
Clear. Who calls you that?
Almost everyone. It's a combination of Kasacha, Sharon. So it's Kasha, but it means clear. Yes.
Katekaine.
Yeah, actually.
How do you pronounce Katekaine?
Katekaine.
Katekaine.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means calm.
Calm.
Yeah.
Okay, Katekaine. Thank you.
It's my first name.
Oh, it's your personal name. It's like a, is it a nickname or is it the name of your ID?
It's the name of my ID, but still, a few people call me that because everyone calls me my second name.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone calls me my first name, and this is my second name, so very few people call me that.
Oh, okay. But the people who call you that, you know, they're closer, they know you well. Okay, katika ile. Thank you. Lanoia. Lanoia.
Yes, so my name is Lanoy, but my mom and dad call me Lanoia. So that just is to make me feel good. Somebody who likes smiling.
You know we are not thinking. Thank you, Lanoia. Thank you.
Yeah. Jaber means beautiful. Yes, you can see the sorry? My family members.
Your family.
Yes, even. Yeah. Yeah, my mom, my dad, my siblings. It is my home name.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Nana.
Yeah, so Nana is my nickname actually, and it's not my real name. But I use that as my main name. But my actual name, yes, my actual name is Nana Ajua Yosua. Nana because I was named after an elderly person called Yosua, and Ajua because I was born on a Monday. And my names were too long, so Nana became the short, and Nana has become forever.
Is that what every family?
Everybody calls me Nana.
Uh-huh.
So Nana is just my name now.
Nice.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's my mom who calls me this. She says when I came, she used not to talk also, but when I came in her life, she started talking, like she talks endlessly.
Your mom started talking.
Yeah. So she calls me that.
Your mom, who's the Kasuku?
Yeah. But she calls me this.
She calls you that.
Yeah.
You know I'm going to call you to TikTok. Mokogoti. How did I pronounce it right? Mokogoti.
Yeah.
Mokogoti. From which community?
Kuria community. So Mkogoti means last born. Yeah, they do refer me to that name.
That's nice. Katunda.
Yeah. My late dad always called me Katunda, because I'm the first fruit of the family. It's a Kamba name to mean small fruit.
She's the first fruit of the family. Father, please learn how to be, to your daughter. So he always called you Katunda. Yes. Abo.
Yes, good morning. It's pronounced Abo or Abo. Yes, this is the name my mom calls me today. And it means like my beloved boy, I'm my dad. Yes. So I was born my mom's dad, so please be.
Thank you very much. Ruhi.
Yeah. The name means my heart. Yes. Yeah, my dad.
Really?
Yes.
So he talks to you and says Ruhi, and you know your dad is saying it.
Yes, I am his favorite. Like, he really loves me.
I'm gonna chill. I like it. Princess. Me, I said no, babe. Okay, princess. Tell us.
It's because my name is Diana, so they started calling me Princess. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, princess. Okay.
yeah.
Big clap there, but I need to get. Nerida, I know you have pet names as well, or you guys. Yeah, we want to, Sharon and Sharon. What's your pet name?
I don't have one.
You don't have. We want to give you good people. We need a pet name for Sharon. Please work hard. Rachel.
Hi.
Nyangi.
Yeah, so my middle name is Anyango. I rarely use it, but my fiancé calls me Nyangi. So it's really made me such a beautiful name for me. I have no clue. I think someone was born very early, like very early in the morning. Yeah, so I thank you.
Nyangi, it's okay. Nerida, tell her.
So mine is mine is Yene Walk.
Yene Walk.
It is what my in-laws call me. My in-laws are from Ethiopia. It means our gold.
Our?
Gold.
Our gold.
Gold. Gold. Yes. Yene Walk.
Mildred, I knew you'd refuse this one, but they call me this.
Toto.
Yes. But this is a name my grandmother gave me, Tapseurei.
Tapseurei.
Yes.
I like the way it goes down in my tongue. You know what? Please show it to me again.
Tapseurei.
Tapseurei.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's basically that person that holds you down, your rock.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I don't know whether you understand, like me, that our African names are powerful. Not only our African names, but the pet names that you're given. Before you sit, good people, today I want to start this meeting with asking you to help me solve a problem. If you're not able to give me the answer right now, we try, and you give me by the end of the day. If you give me an answer, you can sit. Now I've been stressed, wondering. In our meeting here, in our learning summit, in our meeting, you know, when a fish and a bird get married, where now do they build their house? Yeah, I just want an answer that's convincing. Abo, then you sit. Yes, Kaki. Okay. I need help with these roving mics. So you can just, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, just think, you tell me, because they're married now, Nana. They're married, so they need a house.
Okay. I'm here plan, so when I fail, I'm a student. When the bird and the fish get married, where do they build their house? Okay. So happens that they get married, they build their house in the swamp.
Which swamp?
Swamp.
So house, they sleep where? The bird. Sit. I'm not convinced, Kaki. Please give her more tea. It's it's difficult, but birds and fishes actually do fall in love a lot. They do fall in. Yes, Amoti.
To me, it can't happen.
They do. So this scenario is already there, Moti. You can't rechange the scenario. It's already there. They are already married. They just want to build a house. It's there. You see? You know, sometimes we look at scenarios and we feel like they're not possible. But it's okay, Moti. It's already there. Nasieku, tell me. One is, they're in love. They're married. Here, take it round. Give it a try. Think about it. Honestly, katekaine, when a bird and a fish, they actually, birds and fishes fall in love and they have to live together. They have to consummate their marriage, they have to live together, Kasuku. Yes, Bwana Chief. Ndege na samaki. Where do they build their house? Kwa tumbo ya nani? Mr. Nice, nipe jibu. There's a hand this side, yes. I really want to try and see how I'm going to move these things. Here. Who has the mic? Mr. Nice, tell me. Okay, you're thinking about the love bit. Okay, Ruhi.
Where they met.
Yes. Which is where?
Where they met.
Which is
if
where?
It is in water, it's in water.
Which is where? Because they're already married. They just want a house. You know, a house is permanent. Where you go, you keep off your feet, you sit there, you eat, you live there.
Yes, where they got married. Where they fell in love and where they got married.
Can I have another answer? Kasha, no. Kasha, yes, here. Give Mokogoti. Ipo, hivi inawezekana? Jovin huoni? Ndani ya maji wapi? Huyu ndege kwanza hata si wa maji.
Okay, allow me ask this. What type of a bird do you refer to?
The questions are even irrelevant. They already married.
Like the some that live in water.
They're married. Kasha.
At the peak. Awesome.
At the
peak of the fish and the
at the beak.
At the hapo katikati.
Katikati wapi?
Maji hapo kwa nini?
Hapo kwa hewa. Good people, yes. Jonju. Wapi? they build the house in their hearts. Mi nakupenda tu, tutaishi hapa ndani ya roho. John Ju. John Ju. Smart, yes, Kasha? Which nest? The fish will live in the nest. The bird does the what?
It's the fish.
You eat the person you love, you have married. Now you eat the person you love. Hey, Kasha. Yes. Kataka ine, tell me. So where do they live? Are they already, you know how love is. People are married. Ladies and gentlemen, I will wait for the end of the day for you to give me a proper answer. Please brood over it and think about it. Then many times we look at situations and we want them to be straight. Please have a seat. Thank you very much. That many times we look at situations and they're supposed to be straightforward and easy. But many times situations thrust us together where it's not easy and not straightforward, yet we are supposed to cope. You know? We are supposed to live together. We are supposed to share together. We're supposed to work together. We're supposed to fight together. Welcome to this second day of the East African Learning Summit by the Girls Not Brides. And we are joined online by our colleagues. We welcome you. Thank you very much for tuning in and logging in. We appreciate you. So now today, there's a lot we need to do. There's a lot of work. We need to roll up our sleeves a lot on a lot of things from our country programs and groups. Before I do that, before we get into the program, may I quickly call in Nolene, who's just sat now, and I'm stressing her again, to quickly give us a few words as we... I did. Come. I did whisper a word of prayer. Did anybody hear me whisper 2 lines of prayer? When I started, imagine God, you talk to God anytime, but please, can we close our eyes? Jehovah, God, creator of heaven and earth, we thank you for this space. Again, we are here. We give it to you. We pray that the space builds and not destroys. We pray that you show us the way on the work that we do, because it is work that is ordained and anointed by you for the good of your people. We thank you, Jehovah. Amen. Amen. Nolene.
Asante.
This is how I miss John.
Thank you, Mildred. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Quick reminders. If you haven't yet given me your consent form, please do so today. Second announcement is for our colleagues from Tanzania and Uganda. We are having the medical team coming in, so we'll step away for a bit when I call you, when they're here. So we'll be going up here to Saunders Hall in the black room for your quick PCR tests, and then you can come back in. The other announcement was, now I've forgotten because I'd walked up. But yes, when they come in, I'll just highlight that. But please remember to send in your consent forms, and don't forget to register, because I didn't see everybody registered yesterday. If you're having challenges, kindly let me know or let Sharon know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nolene. Thank you. We've taken note of that, haven't we? Thank you very much. We have to do our recap of yesterday. I know that we all have, we had some serious fun. Pendo, was it fun? Disruption in your mind or fun? What did you like the most? What did you like? As I call on Rachel, our rapporteur, coming forward to take us through a recap, very quickly, Pendo, what did you like the most yesterday?
Yeah. Yesterday was exciting. I liked a lot of things. My best session, maybe this is more of a personal interest, was the panel discussion on networking, the great things that networking is doing. And this is something very closer to my heart. Myself being the coordinator of a national coalition, with the challenges that we share, and we kept discussing here and there, learning from Uganda and GNB Kenya on what they are doing in their coalition for me was the best, and it's something that I'll take home. But also, I really like the afternoon session. Yes, I really like it very, very much. The discussions we have, you know, there are things in our organization we take them as obvious. For instance, issues maybe with the mental health component. You see, many people were saying, you know, they don't incorporate it even in their work. Yeah, there's small things, but you know, they kind of affect on the way we can deliver our work and the way we can really champion the cause that we are championing. Yes. So it was really interesting. Thank you.
That's a good. Kasuku, what did you learn yesterday? What do you feel stood out for you?
A lot of things, but also the session where we had a dance and we had to pause and tell our partners what we love best, and they gave suggestions on how we can use that to do our work. It was so self-discovery because we got to learn how to use what you love best. Like, you can't pour from an empty cup.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so good. I like that. My brother, what did you learn yesterday, Amoti, that you feel stood out for you?
I learned about sharing. You share problems, then at times you get different solutions to those problems shared with other colleagues. And another issue was storytelling, so that you can generate some solutions from the stories which are told by other people. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Cecilia Ndegwa, but my family calls me Kamwende. Yes. It means a small person who is loved. Yes. No, I was in yesterday. Yes. What stood out for me yesterday is just how, you know how sometimes you feel like you're doing your best, but results are not matching up. So yesterday I learned, regardless of how small your acts or actions are, there's always a ripple effect that is really going to a really bigger audience, and it's causing some, you know, it's stirring up something somewhere. So it really encouraged me yesterday.
You know, good people, sometimes in forums like this, we think that we know everything that's being said because we go to many forums. But there's always something that stands out, always. And if we are not keen, we miss the lesson. If you're not keen, we miss the lesson. So that's why people like GNB call forums like this, so we grow a little bit. When you go back to your room and you're going to sleep, you say, but what value did I get today? You reflect a little bit. Rochelle, if you can quickly take us through a recap, we'll appreciate a recap of yesterday. And I hope that our online colleagues are even chatting in the chat box for us to know what they learned yesterday, if it stood out for them. Rochelle, as you come. Thank you. Lucas is very excited for joining this session. Thank you, Hope Nankunda. We can see you.
Good morning.
Yeah.
That's how you know if the mic is working. Sorry. Good morning. I hope you all had a good night, and thank you all for the learning that we were able to receive yesterday. Allow me to take you through a recap of what you...
We want a loud one. Press it. Yeah, it's fine.
Is it clear now?
Oh, perfect. Note to self, sometimes we're given microphones even as we work, and we talk with it as if we're afraid that it will bite us. We try to get the voice. I'm not saying anything about Nyangi. We try, isn't it? We try. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mildred. Well, okay, now I think it's much better. So allow me to just take us through a recap of what we were able to learn yesterday during this summit. So much that came out of the discussions, of the group works, of the interactions between different countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Amazing stuff that was happening yesterday. But allow me to just do a recap of what yesterday looked like. So I would like to quote Chief Zakaria Marwa, cultural elder from Kuria, Kenya, who said, "I am happy that you are engaging with colleagues from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania to learn more on ending FGM and child marriage. We have reduced the rate by 75%, which is good progress. To achieve more milestones, we need to work together, especially with the Council of Elders, and support one another. The youth have the energy, but the elders know the way." So that is one of the quotes that we picked from our participants yesterday. Then we had this get to know each other exercise that happened in the morning, where we had the different countries that would get a leader and the blindfolding. And I hope you can all remember that. And some lessons that were picked from that exercise is that sometimes we work blindfolded and wait for people to tell us where to go. Participant from Uganda said, despite sitting on the wrong seat, he said it was hard to get direction from the team, and he was agonized and chose not to listen to the colleagues. He added that because he was blindfolded, he could not trust the people that were directing him. And colleagues in the movement sometimes give us a lot of work and words that push us here and there, and sometimes we end up not trusting them. He said he was suspicious, but used the boundary as a temporary challenge to where he needed to go. Kenya, of course, won the challenge, and the participants said that the team really pushed them and pushed her to win, and they're all shouting and cheering her up, and the ladies were really pushing for that, especially just to ensure that she got to the seat to where she was supposed to sit. The moderator affirmed that sometimes we need to really reflect and think about the work that we do. Is it that we are not doing the right thing to end child and marriage? She asked very pertinent questions. What is it that we are not doing right to end child marriage and FGM? Would we need to redefine the approach and ask the hard questions? Are we tired of scratching the surface and we need to rethink on our approach? So this learning summit, of course, has one key aspect, which is to build solidarity and to strengthen the movements within the region so as to make significant approach. And one of the participants, I think, today has mentioned that the learning and the panel session in terms of solidarity building was a key takeaway for her. And this is one of the objectives for this summit. So mapping out participants' existing work on child marriage in the region, that is one of the activities that happened. And addressing child marriage in East Africa, who is doing what? So the different groups were able to look at the partners in the country. Who is it who's working on child marriage? Who is it that we can reach out to? Who are the potential partners that we can engage with? Who is it that we can even call onto the Girls Not Bride network to register as members? So for Tanzania Partnership to End Child Marriage, the key highlights were to conduct a survey covering the different districts. The results of the survey revealed the need for a number of organizations to come together, working with a number of organizations that have young women, particularly those affected by child marriage, and making sure that their voices are heard. And that's one thing that really came out from all the group discussions, that really having the young women and even with the power to girls, giving the girls the power to voice their stories, to sit at the tables, to discuss, to air their views, and making them the center, because they're the ones who really are at a disadvantage when we talk about child marriage. So using peer research approach, working with the hard-to-reach communities, and then ask the girls to consult with each other and to get the direct experience from the girls. So that really working also in terms of mentorship that came out from the discussions, especially from Tanzania. And then Uganda, One of the participants said child marriage starts from teenage pregnancies. So it's a cycle. So we have the child marriage, and then it gets into another cycle where it leads to teenage pregnancies. She said that traditional and religious leaders need to take up the key positions, and then other people will follow. So they also shared that Uganda held meetings with kingdoms to address the need to have a collective responsibility. They signed an MOU with religious and traditional leaders for cooperation and creating the synergies to work together, and then supporting them to attend national and regional summits to speak on panels. And then one key aspect of also that came out was using the media to increase public awareness. So there was the refreshed partnership strategy. And so looking at the like-minded organizations and coming together to end child marriage, SRHR, providing services, advocacy, increasing access to girls' education. And so this also came up in the group discussions where we were mapping up organizations and looking at who is doing what and looking at the different thematic areas and really engaging in terms of what can these organizations, some of them, and I think that also came out that some of them are not primarily working on child marriage, but their activities and the thematic areas that they work on really builds into reducing or having a zero child marriage and FGM. So setting out ending child marriage at all levels to share resources. And then one thing also that came up is partnership and working with partners and profiling partners and documenting and fulfilling the need to work faster, more effective to create greater impact. Because the work that you do, and that also has come up today, is that the work that you do, sometimes you feel like what you're doing is really not creating impact, but also just having that ripple effect that the work that you're doing also is building into other people's work. And together then we can be able to achieve more. And that's also in line with the theme for the Learning Summit. So community-based organizations also, we talked about something that also came out of the discussions was the underfunding. How do we tap into these resources that are there so that we don't replicate what someone else is doing, but building into each other and having those coalitions. And it also came out that there are organizations that have come up with WhatsApp groups so that they can effectively just engage each other, have a quick response in terms of what's happening. And that's also very key in terms of the network building and creating synergies. The 6 goals, 6 shared goals. So we have multi-stakeholder approach, linking local work to the global communities. And we talked about the different protocols, Maputo Protocol, the AU strategy, and how do we link into that so that the work that we do is not just at local level, but also linking it up to the regional level. Innovating financing. Funding, of course, is a challenge that came out from the discussions, but how do we tap into the finances that are already there? Documenting of knowledge. There was a lot of discussion about documenting. What are we doing? How are we documenting? How do we engage the media, for instance? How do we make sure that the media are our friends to help us to document and to partner? And one of the participants talked about local radio in Tanzania, where they work with the local radio at the grassroots to ensure that the work that they're doing also gets the visibility that it deserves. Creating an Africa hub, the websites and linking research and practitioners. One thing also that came out was research. How do we bring out that research? How do we share? Do we just research and get the findings and sit with them? But how do we, of course, in our networks and linking at the East African level, linking what is happening in Kenya, what is happening in Tanzania, and ensuring that that reaches the audiences that you're looking for. And then working with non-traditional initiatives, creating businesses, because one of the key issues about child marriage is that the families sometimes marry off the young girls because they need a source of income. So how do we become innovative and ensure that we are able to really have the economic empowerment so that child marriage cannot be an option? And then, yes. So movement building, collective approaches to tackling child marriage. So we looked at the key messages. Communities are the real drivers of change. Are your communities ready to change? And this was highlighted by one of the participants who said, we talk about child marriage, but are the communities really interested to really work together to end child marriage? Are there other priorities that are key, food, health, sanitation, education? So really reaching out to the community so that it is community driven as opposed to drumming up the same stories year in, year out. And that question really came out that all these years later, why is it that you're still talking about child marriage? What is it that you're not doing right? So lessons from national partners. What does child marriage mean in Uganda and Tanzania and Kenya? So that the participants were also able to share what child marriage mean in the different countries. Is it a priority for the government? Is it a priority? Are there laws? Are there policies that have been put in place to ensure that child marriage really is a key issue that deserves all the seriousness that needs to be put in it? So the partnership starts with a bold resolution, one of which was to conduct a survey, holding meetings, and agreeing to work together. One thing that cut across was partnership, working together, coalition building on each other. And I think one of the participants talked about big brothers, so really, or big sisters. It means other organizations probably have more funding. So how do we tap into their funding? How do we tap in their knowledge? How do we share capacity building? How do we engage to ensure that we tap onto organizations that are already making progress so that we don't really have to reinvent the wheel? So the need to mobilize other actors, getting the same people who subscribe to the same objective to address issues in their local languages. And that really came out in terms of just using Swahili, for example. We found out in the meeting, and it was key that the language that we speak, for instance, at the grassroots is very key because they're able to articulate issues that they understand in their local language. And from the meeting, I know the moderator was trying to really look for the language, the synonym for the different aspects that you're speaking about in English and Swahili. So really helping us to think through that. Probably one of the strategies that we need is to have all this in our local languages that are very clear to understand, to engage. Talking about also Kenya, the different stakeholders that work individually, that really came out that we are all probably working into our small silos and calling up the organizations to really come together, to join into the networks. I think for Kenya, they talked about 60 organizations, and for Uganda, 100 organizations. So how do we tap into the organizations that are already in the network so that we also build together, and that also, of course, builds into the thematic area for the meeting on building synergies and networking. And then almost finishing. So in Kenya, of course, what has been the impact of coalitions? And one of the participants has said that was according to her, one of the key highlights for the day. So building on coalitions, what has been the impact? What have been the challenges? What are the strategies to ensure that coalitions work? So in Kenya, it came out improved communications among members. They talked about the WhatsApp group, the mailing list, and continuous engagement and working together. So Kenya also benefiting from the technical support. We talked about organizations that have a lot of technical support. How can they, in the network, share that technical ability with other members in the network? In Uganda, of course, maintaining the momentum that child marriage is a big issue, profiling cases even during the COVID-19. So they talked about the annual Girls Summit, which is key for the government. And just working with the government, working with the stakeholders that really ensure that this, the work that we do gets a lot of progress. In Tanzania, collecting voices, documenting, and championing a particular agenda For example, during the CSO shrinking space, it was difficult to ban an organization that belongs to a collective. So really giving that example where if organizations work together as a coalition, then you're not spotlighted, then you don't have people pointing fingers at you. But when you work in a coalition, you're more safer in a coalition, you're able to achieve more. And so really calling up to the organizations to work together. One key aspect that came out of the meetings was documentation. Documentation. What are you doing? Are you reaching out to document what you're doing? There's so much that you're doing, but are we able to put that into documentations, into reports, into evaluation reports, into research reports, into videos and documentaries, thematic video clips, publications, infographics, success stories. And so one thing that came out also is that media is a key stakeholder. How do we work with the media at local level, at regional level, and at international level? And it was key to note that with the coalition, it's easier to engage with the media because sometimes the media ask very pertinent questions. But once you go in as a coalition, probably with a banner that speaks of the coalition as opposed to a banner for each organization which wants to really come out and shine despite the work that we do as a coalition. So really bringing in the media and working and having, say, IC materials that speak for the coalition. So what are some of the challenges in documenting, collective reporting? Of course, it came out that sometimes you want to do a report to a donor, which is so specific, but now you have to report it as a coalition, which sometimes can be a bit of a challenge. So many reports have been written, but the information is not shared to the public. So really calling on all of us, once we have information, share it out with our networks, on WhatsApp, on email, on listservs, so that everybody can be able to know what we're doing as a coalition and as organizations. What are the challenges for movement building? This also came out in the panel session. Resources, of course, very limited resources, but we can be so creative in terms of using the same resources and not really duplicating what you're doing, but coming together as coalitions and working for the same goal. Self-interest for some, expectations from government and other stakeholders, and I think this came out that some actors probably when they see the Girls Not Bride as a brand, they sometimes become not easy to really support. And so for us, it's just how do we manage the expectations? How do we speak from a point of knowledge so that we're able to reach out and ensure that the resources come together? Lack of political will. We had a very strong discussion about how to really work with the governments, how to ensure that the bills are amended, and how to bring other stakeholders, a multi-sectoral approach to bring the courts, to bring the children's department, to bring the teachers, to bring the police, so that they can all share. And one of the participants felt like we should have had probably the police in this meeting. We should have had people maybe from the judiciary, because then we're able to learn from them. We're able to learn from what are the challenges that they're facing, so that as we go back as a coalition, then you're able to build on those challenges and so that they can become strategies. Addressing expectations of the members, so continuously conducting refresher conversation with new members to understand the benefits that came out. How do we bring in new members? And when they come in, they have all these expectations. These are big coalition, probably you have a lot of funding. How do we engage them to understand their role in terms of making sure that the coalition works? Collective branding, building capacity of members, engaging dialogue, developing a strategy that involves all members so that they can be part of it and they can own the discussion. Answering the most difficult question is, what do I get to benefit in it? So really engaging to ensure that we all work to build the collective responsibility that we're all working in the same area. Communication session in the afternoon, of course, the feedback has been it was a self-awareness session that just allowed the participants to be able to come out of their comfort zone, to look at other creative ways of sharing stories and how to build on those stories and the storytelling which has a lot of impact. And behind, there are several quotes, like behind every change, there's an untold story. So the stories that are there that need to come out, that need to be documented, that need to be shared. And then, of course, one thing that came out of the discussions also was mental wellness that has already been discussed this morning. Mental wellness, self-care, how to think about self and how to get the energy for the kind of work that we do, which sometimes causes a lot of trauma, emotional imbalance, and a lot of psychosocial support to handle trauma, working with the family, close relatives, close family members, even at organization level, building an organization and a space in the organization that allows just to share, the kind of work that we do, having open discussions, open spaces, just to recap the kind of work that you're doing so that the emotional well-being then is able to support us to achieve the work that we do. So self-awareness, convictions, team management, there are assumptions, there are bias, there are certain experience, and these have a way of shifting how we do our work. So values clarification and our attitude change is key. What can I do at my level? That was very clear. What can I do as me? What can I be able to do to achieve the kind of work that we need to do? And also appreciative inquiry to help our beneficiaries, to help them to stand to gain a lot from the diverse communities, help the communities participate more and see from a different perspective. And so finally, the session about storytelling and which was very well perceived by the participants is that storytelling helps us to build on something that is very, very significant. Because out of the small groups, then the participants were able to come up with a story, to share different aspects with each other, to create really a safe space. Because out of the small groupings, then that safe space where you're able to share your feeling in terms of the different aspects that were coming out. So in a nutshell, that is what we were able to pick from yesterday's sessions. Thank you.
Because as a rapporteur, when you're actually learning double, and then you're delivering. Thank you for a job well done. We appreciate that. Now today we have a documentary. We have a documentary, I see. Today we have several. And I'll invite Sharon to come on and present to us a documentary on the accelerator approach. Good people, I really ask that if you can keep away your phone a bit to just focus on that documentary and the explanation behind it, it will really help us with the intention.
Wake up, Bobuli, Rima, Ekenda.
So welcome, Sharon.
Good morning, everyone.
I know you've heard about the accelerator approach to finish the program.
Oh, it's not working. Okay. So I know you've heard about the accelerator approach and you've seen it in the agenda. So in the next few minutes, we're going to have presentations about our accelerator approach. But before we do that, I'm going to share with you some documentaries that we've documented with support from our donor, the People's Postcode Lottery, who enabled us to have this documentary on this project that we've been implementing in Migori and Tarime. So it's a cross-border project targeting the Kuria community on ending child marriage and other harmful cultural practices. So I'm going to ask the team to assist me in playing the first video. So you're going to see the first video that is shot in Migori County. And then after that,
Mimi ni mmoja wa wasichana ambaye nilitamani niendelee na masomo na nilienda. Katika 10 unaweza kukuta 3 au 4. Wasichana walikuwa wachache, ila kwa wavulana walikuwa ni wengi. Tukienda moja kwa moja bila shida. Hii ni sehemu ya nini? Tukiangalia katika swala au hususan katika jamii yetu, kuna mila ya ukeketaji. Ilikuwa ni mazoea, na maana wakiona kundilika fulani mwaka fulani wamekeketwa, na wenyewe wanatamani mbona fulani aliacha shule akiwa la 6 au la 7, na yeye anatamani kuacha, au kama ameshafanywa kile kitendo akiwa la 6 na la 7 anajiona amekuwa, kwa hiyo aweza anakuwa na kakiburi fulani hivi, anaona hata ile elimu haina shida sana, inabidi anaacha.
Tangu enzi za mama yangu, mtoto wa kike alikuwa anatoka ng'ombe 55. Kwa hiyo mtoto wa kike alionekana kama ni rasilimali ya familia. Ndio maana unakuta wanaozwa, wengine wana umri miaka 13, 12.
Yule mtu ambaye anaathiriwa zaidi na tatizo anajua tatizo lake kwa asilimia kubwa, na anaweza yeye kuwa njia ya kuondoa ile tatizo. Unaona, kwa tukamili, kwa sababu pia vijana wana ndio waathirika wakubwa, kwa hiyo wanajua ile tatizo jinsi gani liliwasibu, lakini pia wana yale machungu ya ile tatizo.
At the government level, they've managed to reach chiefs and DCs, that's district commissioners, local leaders, local administrative leaders, who have started to actually integrate interventions against FGM and child marriage within their work plans, within their budgets. So for us, that's a key area of sustainability. Beyond just the project, what will go on? And what will go on is really governments working with the local communities, parents working with young activists reaching out to girls, especially in the most at-risk areas, and that's the interventions then will continue.
Hizo ndoa za utotoni sasa hivi zimepungua 1% kwa sababu watu wengi huwa wanaelewa, wanachukulia hatua, sio kwamba eti tunaenda kuelimisha yanapita. Kinachotakiwa sasa hivi ni kuwa na mkazo sana ili tuelimishe hilo jambo liende mbali.
Katika ndoa za utotoni, wakati unapoenda kujifungua, unaweza ukapata kifo kwa sababu ile hali ya kusukuma mtoto unashindwa, via vyako vya uzazi unakuta ni vidogo, yaani nyonga zako hazijatanuka.
Mabadiliko ya mtazamo yamekuwepo, na baadhi hata ya wazee na wao wamekwisha tambua, maana wamekwisha tayari kugundua kwamba kitu ambacho kilikuwa kinafanyika huko nyuma sasa hivi hakitakiwi kufanyika kwa watoto, ambacho kinatakiwa kwamba watoto waelimishwe wote, watambue umuhimu wa kutimiza ndoto zao, awe mtoto wa kike au mtoto wa kiume.
Tunapozidi kukana, wazee wanatuunga mkono.
Wasikilizaji wangu wanapenda vipindi vyangu kwa sababu tu moja, na kutana na familia kubwa ya watu waliofanyiwa mambo hayo, tofauti na mwanzo nilivyokuwa nikisumbuliwa. Na hii yote imejengwa na watu wa CDF, wamenifanyia kitu kama njia ya mkato kuwapata wahusika halisi, tofauti na mwanzo.
Mimi ni mzazi na watoto wawili, wa kike na wa kiume. Pia ndoto zangu katika watoto wangu hao wawili, cha kwanza kabisa ni kuweza kuwapatia elimu ili iweze kuwasaidia kwa maisha yao ya baadaye. Jinsi ninapozidi kutoa mimi kama mimi mzazi wake elimu, ina maana atakapozidi kukua atakuwa anajua mamangu alikuwa anatoa elimu fulani. Ina maana hata yeye atakapokuwa unaweza kashangaa anaiga ile elimu niliyokuwa naitoa, kwa sababu ni kitu ambacho amekuwa anamuona mamake anafanya.
I'm Wankyo Jacqueline Chacha. I'm a teacher. You find that most in Kuria communities, they believe that girl child is not entitled to education, but boy child is supposed to be taken to school for education. When I was in class 5, we were so many girls in our class, but we had a holiday that we were promoted to class 6. It was during circumcision, December holiday, and most girls, they went through FGM. So after that, when we were opening in January, they never reported back to school. Some were married, others were just at home. They never continued their schoolwork. And when I meet them outside there, I pity with them because they're not doing well. So this thing made me to feel like girls need to be talked to so that they can gain that knowledge about education and not focus about being married.
You find that girls who clear primary and transit to secondary, you find that we have around 40 or 50% transiting.
In the Kuria community, they believe that if you are a girl and you have not gone for a FGM, you cannot open the gate for people to pass. You cannot go to the vegetable garden, that those vegetables are going to dry up. So if they hear about that, they feel that, so I have to go through this one so that I can be married. We have youth working group where we meet the stakeholders. On Wednesdays, we have guiding and counseling where we meet with girls, we guide them. We tell them more about this child marriage, FGM. So we talk to them, we educate with them, we tell them the importance of a girl to be educated. So they can give you the challenges that they're passing through, so you assist them on how to handle them.
I would love to see our young girls standing up and speaking up to their rights.
I'll be sharing out my story to them, and I believe that through my story, they will get something from me and they will change.
Tumesaidiane kuhamasisha watu wetu kwamba ndoa za mapema si nzuri kwa sababu zinatuletea pia umaskini na vitu zingine zenye si za kawaida.
Tuna programu kama sisi inaitwa Youth Mentorship Program. Tunaalikanga wale watu ambao tunajua kwamba ni wataalamu wa mambo kama haya kuongelea mambo kama hayo. Kama kuna kipindi tumealika watu kutoka Msichana Empowerment wakakuja wakaongea na vijana wetu. Pia tunaalika pia watu wengine. We need one another.
Mara ya kwanza kupata hii elimu eti msichana astahiliwe ilikuwa ni kibarua kigumu sana. Juu familia yenye nilikuwa nimeolewa hakukuwa na mtu mwenye hajawahi tahiriwa. Watu walikuwa wametahiriwa. Nyuma kitambo nilikuwa nina support. Lakini tangia tupate mafundisho hata msichana wangu hakutahiriwa. Nikaungana na wengine mkono, nikakubali msichana hata hakutahiriwa mpaka akasoma akamaliza.
In our community, since we began the conversations, we've had like a good number of elders, religious leaders having the conversation, talking about it openly. So it means it's something that they needed so much to have a chat with, but they didn't have the space.
At least FGM in Kuria has reduced. It's not at the same as when I was young, the way they were celebrating it, mostly for girls. But nowadays, they're hiding it, but it is reducing.
There's nothing you can do for communities without the community. So community ownership, community work, and community partnership is integral to all projects of this nature.
No clap. What are some of the reactions? What can you pick from that, the documentary that you've just shown? Yes, Nehemiah? Yes, Nehemiah? Oh, want a microphone?
I picked 3 things. I'm Muhumu Zaisa from Uganda. Story sharing can create an impact to change of people's mindsets. Because when the other woman, the other teacher, learned something and shared it with those whom she was teaching, they changed. And another thing was local involvement. So like the religious leaders, cultural leaders, so that they own what you're trying to put into them. Lastly, sessions like guidance and counseling also create an impact to communities. Thank you.
Sharon.
Naweza sema kwamba nimeona inclusivity ile hali ya kuhusiana wote tumeona. Kuna wale wasichana wameongea na wazee wameongea, pia tumeona akina mama wale wamebadilika wameongea, ili kusudi kila mtu ajumuishwe kwa ile hali nzuri yenye inaendelea, kila mtu awemo. Vijana nimeona wakiongea, wasichana wakiongea, ili kusudi tuende pamoja, lazima tuweke kila mtu katika hiyo hali. Hicho ndicho nimeona hapo, kwamba kama wasichana wamehusishwa, wazee wa kimila wamehusishwa, wamama wamehusishwa, then kila mtu ataenda na hiyo njia. Asante.
Asante sana. Mimi nimefurahi kuona vyenye jamii inahusishwa. Kitu cha kwanza cha muhimu kabisa ni mafundisho. Ina maana watu wetu hawakuwa na mafundisho. Vile nilivyotangulia kusema kwamba hapo nyuma hata sisi kama Council of Elders hatungeweza kuongea kuhusu mambo ya tohara. Ilikuwa ni mbaya sana. Lakini wale wachache tuliweza kupata elimu na tukafundishwa, ndio maana tukawa champions wa kusaidia wale wengine kuja kwa meza na kufundishwa, na tukashirikiana na wale viongozi wengine na wale donors, msichana empowerment na wengine wakatusaidia kujifundisha. Kwa hivyo nimefurahi, na hiyo tu ndio njia ambayo itaendelea kusaidia watu. Najua hata kuna msemo wa Kiswahili unasema kwamba jinga akiripuka mwerefu huwa mashakani. Sasa tunasema tumeripuka. Wale watu waliokuwa na dhana ya kufikiri kwamba tohara ni nzuri sasa watabaki kwa matabani, kwa sababu hakuna tohara itafanyika na unyanyasaji na ndoa za utotoni. Asante.
Okay. Now, Sharon, on my part, just watching that clip has reminded me very far, because I'm part of the clip, and it reminded me of some 3 girls I met when we were doing that dialogue. So these 3 girls, when it came to the December cut, the FGM, having known me during that dialogue, I had left my contacts there. So those 3 girls are among the girls that I met in that village, and actually we rescued them from FGM come December. I think the clip was done around October thereabout, and in December we had the cat, and it happens that when we were there in that village, I left my contacts there, so we happened to rescue these girls. So really it has reminded me a lot about the work that we do.
Spoke about it. The fact that there was a young activist who spoke to her fellow girls. The fact that the village elder and chief spoke to fellow chiefs and other elders. And the fact that boys were included. The fact that you even went to schools to educate people on matters FGM and child marriage. So for me, actually, that is what really stood out for me. Because I know sometimes schools can act as safe spaces or safe houses for girls to run away from FGM and child marriage. So the collective approach in the whole video is what stood out for me.
Thank you so much. Sean? Yes, please. Shara?
Yes, me, what caught my mind was the part where I saw boys engage and also men engaging in all the activities that were done. We cannot move further if we are to move as girls or as women. But by the help of the men around us, I believe we can move further and further. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. So that is exactly what accelerator approach means. We want to move this work with all the relevant stakeholders in the community level, starting from the cultural elders, to the religious leaders, to the girls, to the men, the boys, the morans, everyone. We want to walk this walk with them, because we cannot do it by ourselves. As much as we're implementing these projects in their communities, they are the ones to drive this change. We have to find the community-based solutions. And we really thank the PPL project that has made this possible. We were implementing it in partnership with Msichana Empowerment Korea in Migori and Children's Dignity Forum in Dar es Salaam. They have an office in Tarime, and we really, really appreciate their support and partnership even in making these videos. So I'm going to take another round of reactions because I see some hands up. Yes, Millicent? Oh, yeah, it's Ruth. Ruth first.
So what caught my attention from this is the fact that the girl is in a different story. That is a role model. And it's an approach that we hear the story that saying that our stories are best told by us. So when the girls spoke, the girls in the community, they know her. It's a girl in that village. So when she spoke and gave them her final judgment that FGM is wrong, then definitely it's easy for the girls to relate with it. So using role models.
Wow, thank you so much, Ruth. I know she's implementing a similar project in Marakwet, and so she has learned solutions and the best approaches to use in ending child marriage and other harmful cultural practices. Thank you, Ruth. Over to you, Millicent.
The girl she was not engaged in yes, she was not engaged in tailoring, and it's like you're coming into the community and there's a need that needs to be dealt with or addressed, and then you're meeting them at that point of need. So you're providing an alternative where otherwise the girls would not really have something else to do, having dropped out of school. I think that caught my attention.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, you saw in the video, Tarime video, a lady by the name Esther Chacha. She's one of our youth activist, and she sits in the youth working group. And so she was just sharing with the mentees that she mentors from that community. And thanks, Millicent, for pointing it out.
Yeah.
Yes, Lanoy?
Yeah, for me, what stood out for me is the issue around sustainability. The project thought of sustainability from the beginning. Many a times we think of sustainability either halfway of the project, but in this instance, the project really started working with the local structures, the young people at the community level, and this then ensures that as the project is coming to an end, whatever the PPA project was doing will be continued by the structures that are already existing at the community level.
Wow, thank you so much, Lani, for raising that very important point about sustainability. Happy to mention that it was just a one-year project, restricted grant, but at least they were able to put in place sustainability measures as they began implementing, involving young people, linking them up with already existing structures like the Department of Children's Services, the administration. So really, really good to hear about sustainability in very short projects. Any final remarks? Oh yes, Wanjiru?
Mine, I think it's a question. There's something that really happened in December last year in Migori. And for anyone who works around girls and women, I think we all know what was going on in Migori. There was lots of FGM and girls being paraded. And I'm just wondering, and I've had, I have so many friends from Korea, and there's been lots of conversations on there's going to be another cutting maybe in the next 1 week or 2 weeks. I'm just wondering, with the campaigns and with a lot of work, so many organizations and even team members have really done in that county, do we feel like maybe we need to change our approach and really have a conversation with the elders? Because I heard it's the issue of appeasing spirits or something like that. Because I think it's time now we address the root issue. I'm not saying they're not addressing the root issue, but if it's going to happen that in the next 1 week again we're going to lose girls, are not going to be safe, maybe also as GNB, part of this East African movement, maybe by the end of this meeting we can find out how we can be able to help our team from Korea, because I believe there's something wrong going on. And as team members here and across the global, I don't think it is fun for us, for a girl to go through FGM, for any girl to go through FGM at this time. Thank you.
Labda kusaidiana kidogo. Mara nyingi tumekuwa tukiongea kuhusu FGM, lakini pia tunafaa kuweka nguvu zaidi. Wakati huu tulikuwa na OSPD mwenye ametusaidia sana. Miaka mingine tulikuwa na shida sana. Unaenda kuambia askari anakuambia hata nyumbani kwetu msichana wangu ametahiri. So we need, I was thinking we need to have at least, what do we call it? Kikosi cha kuweza kusaidia maneno na FGM. Wale watu wako tayari kufanya kazi. Let's say umechukua Masai umepeleka pale Kuria, kwake amekeketa mtoto nyumbani, na unamwambia afanye kazi ya kushika watu. Anaanza kuambia hii ni kimira ya Wakuria, siwezi fanya those things. Another thing, vile venye mwenzangu amesema, ni kiasi kwamba tuweze kusaidiana. Yale mashirika yote yako labda hapa na kule kwingine. Wakati huu wenye tutakuwa na huo ukeketaji, labda tutoke nje tuweze kusaidia. Utaenda police station kuambia OCS kwamba kuna kitu itaendelea mahali, OCS anakuambia hana mafuta. ingelikuwa labda si msichana empowerment walitusaidia kidogo wakati huo kupata mafuta na vitu kama hizo, tulikuwa tuna shida. Kwa hivyo ningeliomba kwamba yale mashirika labda yako Migori County, yale mengine tuko hapa, kama tunaweza toka wakati wa March mpaka April, hapo tutakuwa tuna hiyo kazi ngumu. Secondly, labda niweze kutacha vitu zingine kama wale wa Tanzania wenzetu wenye tunatoka hapo karibu na mipaka. Bila shaka this time labda tuwe na nyinyi pia mnaweza kusaidia upande ule. Maana wakati huu tumekuwa tukilaumiana kwamba Wakuria wa Kenya wamevuka Tanzania wameenda kutahirishwa pale, na Watanzania wanasema hapana, ni wa Kenya, vitu kama hizo. Labda tukiwa na kikosi cha pale Tanzania cha kuweza kusaidia kushika watu na pia kuelimisha watu pale kwa mipaka wakati huu, isije iwe ni kulaumiana tu, itakuwa labda itatusaidia kwa kazi nzuri tutakayokuwa tunaendelea nayo. Labda pia kuongezea nikimalizia, sijui kama Tanzania wako na children officers, pia na wao waweze kufanya kazi pale Tanzania kutusaidia, ili kusudi watu wakishikwa pale kidogo na Kenya washikwe kidogo, at least watu wataenda chini kidogo. Kuhusu chenye mwenzetu alisema wazee wa Kimira walipewa pesa ya kwenda kwa mlima na wakaenda kwa milima, but at the end of the day wakasema wale wameanza kama wanaendelea kukeketa ni wenye hawajui wametoka wapi. Kwa hivyo hizo play games zikitoka pale tutakuwa labda tunaweza faulu. Asante.
Asante sana Chief.
Asante, thank you members. I think there is need for us to understand this. First of all, before I make my statement, I am the children officer of the area that was hardly hit. I don't want to say hardly hit. It's only because administration has come closer. That is how we managed to have this high number of guys who were caught, either arrested or headed for the cut. I'm saying this because you realize Madera sub-county is a new sub-county. Initially, we used to have our administration working and operating from Kuria West. So right now, I want to believe it is because of this administration that came closer, the OSPDs, all these people, stakeholders that are involved in the crackdown, that we are able to have this big number of girls being arrested and found in need of care and protection. So really, I don't want to call it a bigger number. It is because of the crackdown that was done. This time round, there was no joke with FGM issues, more so from the police side. We really had a very big support in terms of the police coming in to arrest and all the stakeholders. So really, I want to put it on the issue of administration coming closer. The cut has always been there. It's been big. But this time round, stakeholders came. We even had the anti-FGM board coming down to Madera to assist in the crackdown. We had the police siren going around. We could go around overnight. Normally, awake to the cut, there's always that eve to the cut where there is a dancing. There's a lot of festivity. This one was banned. The police were moving around overnight doing the crackdown. So really, I don't want to attach this to say that this time we had a big number of girls cut. No, we had a serious crackdown. That is why I'm thinking we managed to have this big number. As I sit here, I'm having 86 girls in Manga Remand Center who were found cut. Right now, they are there. They're supposed to be in court on Friday, very early in the morning. I'm supposed to be having those girls to testify in court and go back to their families. So really, I want to say it's the issue of us tightening our what do I call it? Yes, there was a lot of stepping up from the police, from the stakeholders. So really, that is what I want to attach to it. And then as we talk about the issues to do with the Council of Elders, really we have to understand that the Kuria custodians of the law are the Wazees. These Wazees are the custodians of our law. So for us to get a leeway into this community, you have to engage them into a serious conversation. And now, by the time this cut was beginning, we are only worried that we had not come into. There is an MOU that UNICEF and the Migori County were trying to get into with the Council of Elders, the Kuria Council of Elders. So at the time that the cut is beginning, you find that we were not yet at the peak of the consensus. What we had only managed to secure as stakeholders was the budget for these wazee to go to the shrine. Because they say the FGM has the connotation of the spiritual connotation part of it, so they have to go and appease the ancestors, slaughter some cows, blah, blah. There is a budget they give. I think we have the coordinator here who can be able to talk about it appropriately. But as far as we are concerned, it is budget goes to the shrines that was given, and from the shrines is where they were supposed to come back and sign an MOU with UNICEF and the Migori County that now will enable us hold them accountable. Whenever there is a cut, we will go for them and tell them, you signed this, and what is going on. So currently, that is what we are working on towards achieving. If these Council of Elders are able to sign this MOU and say that whenever there is a cut in any clan, because we are involving the 4 clans in this consensus. So if these wazis can make it to sign the consensus and say that whenever there is a cut, hold us accountable. That way we can be able to achieve through the Council of Elders. So really we were getting a leeway through the Council of Elders. So any other
Thank you so much, Madam Janet. I don't want to give any other reactions, but I really want to thank Janet for shedding light regarding the cutting season in Kuria, in Migori. I know that it's a discussion that we can continue. You know, we can continue this discussion later during the advocacy session where Madam Janet will be a panel speaker, and we can ask questions, and we can also give more recommendations as to what needs to be done to minimize and to reduce the rates of gas being cut in March. Millicent, you have a burning point. 1 minute, then we close it at that.
I'm worried because this is the 3rd time since last year, late last year, December, and then around, this is the 3rd, she's saying there's an imminent plan in the next 1 week. And this will be the 3rd time we're going to have a wave of FGM in Kuria. I'm happy that something is happening, and probably the hype is simply because something is happening. But now my concern is with the already communicated, or rather something that is already in the open, and surprisingly these things are just happening in the open. The girls are paraded in the open, you know. I'm wondering what has already been put in place for this imminent one, the next 1 week. As she puts it, what exactly have you put in place?
Yes, for 1 minute. We can continue this discussion later during the advocacy session. Then we can agree on some of the recommendations and way forward. I know as Girls Not Brides, we also got this information, and we are actually working with our partners and to see what we can be able to do in terms of rallying support from government stakeholders. So we are also in the loop, and we are trying to see how to.
Mine is just a supplement on the solution.
No, Nehemiah, I think it was Cess. Kindly, because of time, we need to go for tea break. So kindly just give Cess, because she works in Migori, for her to respond to that. Yeah, she works in Kuria.
I think for the longest time is FGM usually happens and everyone pulls the rope towards their end. But in regards to the Easter cutting, because due to the KCPE and KCAC being done next month, there is speculation that there will be massive cutting. So in regards to that, all the CSOs, stakeholders from Migori County, we had a sit down a little over 2-3 weeks ago in planning towards the Easter cutting, because it's something imminent. It will happen. Right? So we met with everyone, and we discussed on, because the challenge with the previous cutting, the December cutting, there was speculation. We were not sure. So when it happened, we did not have proper planning. That was last year. But now we've identified safe houses, we've identified calls, we've really tried our level best from all the stakeholders to ensure when it happens, and if it happens, we are ready with on how to protect girls, communications, logistics. So I think right now, we are really doing our best on the ground.
Thank you so much Cess for that clarification. Mzee Zekaria, ulipoondoka tumekuwa na mazungumzo mengi kuhusu Kuria community, but tutaendeleza haya mazungumzo baadaye kwenye session ya advocacy. But asanteni sana. Thank you very much for the wonderful feedback and reactions to the documentaries, and we are looking forward to engaging further regarding the accelerator approach that we've been using as Girls Not Brides in implementing projects in East Africa. So thank you so much, and I wish you a lovely break. See you later.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Thank you. And I urge that we continue the conversation. Let's hold it there. Let's not stop. Please, if you could just get your tea. It's out here. Get your tea and come back to the room, please. You see the discussions are getting into action. And that's what we provoke. And I love the fact that in 7 days, we might reach that. The point is that in 7 days, tomorrow is Tuesday, isn't it? So what do we do? And I love that we say, this is the third time the wave is happening and here it is here. It can't be all stop. Okay? Let's get this. Let's come back and work. Let's come back and put that on the board. Let's just put it down. Okay? Yes, let's get this. And a big thank you to our partners online. We will break briefly for 5-10 minutes and then we continue.
Play video moja. Hopefully nasikia.
Mimi ni mmoja wa wasichana ambaye nilitamani niendelee na masomo na nilienda. Katika 10 unaweza kukuta 3 au 4. Wasichana walikuwa wachache, ila kwa wavulana walikuwa ni wengi. Tukienda moja kwa moja bila shida. Hii ni sehemu ya nini? Tukiangalia katika swala au hususan katika jamii yetu, kuna mila ya ukeketaji. Ilikuwa ni mazoea, na maana wakiona kundilika fulani mwaka fulani wamekeketwa, na wenyewe wanatamani mbona fulani aliacha shule akiwa la 6 au la 7, na yeye anatamani kuacha, au kama ameshafanywa kile kitendo akiwa la 6 na la 7 anajiona amekuwa, kwa hiyo aweza anakuwa na kakiburi fulani hivi, anaona hata ile elimu haina shida sana, inabidi anaacha.
Tangu enzi za mama yangu, mtoto wa kike alikuwa anatoka ng'ombe 55. Kwa hiyo mtoto wa kike alionekana kama ni rasilimali ya familia. Ndio maana unakuta wanaozwa, wengine wana umri miaka 13, 12.
Yule mtu ambaye anaathiriwa zaidi na tatizo anajua tatizo lake kwa asilimia kubwa, na anaweza yeye kuwa njia ya kuondoa ile tatizo. Unaona, kwa hiyo kwa sababu pia vijana wao ndio waathirika wakubwa, kwa hiyo unajua ile tatizo jinsi gani liliwasibu, lakini pia wana yale machungu ya ile tatizo.
At the government level, they've managed to reach chiefs and DCs, that's district commissioners, local leaders, local administrative leaders, who have started to actually integrate interventions against FGM and child marriage within their work plans, within their budgets. So for us, that's a key area of sustainability, beyond just the project, what will go on. And what will go on is really governments working with the local communities, parents working with young activists reaching out to girls, especially in the most at-risk areas, and that's the interventions then will continue.
Hizo ndoa za utotoni sasa hivi zimepungua asilimia, kwa sababu watu wengi huwa wanaelewa, wanachukulia hatua, sio kwamba eti tunaenda kuelimisha yanapita. Kinachotakiwa sasa hivi ni kuwa na mkazo sana ili tuelimishe hilo jambo liende mbali.
Katika ndoa za utotoni, wakati unapoenda kujifungua, unaweza ukapata kifo, kwa sababu ile hali ya kusukuma mtoto unashindwa, via vyako vya uzazi unakuta ni vidogo, yaani nyonga zako hazijatanuka.
Mabadiliko ya mtazamo yamekuwepo, na baadhi hata ya wazee na wao wamekwisha tambua, maana wamekwisha tayari kugundua kwamba kitu ambacho kilikuwa kinafanyika huko nyuma sasa hivi hakitakiwi kufanyika kwa watoto, ambacho kinatakiwa kwamba watoto waelimishwe wote, watambue umuhimu wa kutimiza ndoto zao, awe mtoto wa kike au mtoto wa kiume.
Tunapozidi kukaa na wazee, wanatuunga mkono.
Wasikilizaji wangu wanapenda vipindi vyangu kwa sababu tu moja, na kutana na familia kubwa ya watu waliofanyiwa mambo hayo, tofauti na mwanzo nilivyokuwa nikisumbuliwa. Na hii yote imejengwa na watu wa CDF, wamenifanyia kitu kama njia ya mkato kuwapata wahusika halisi, tofauti na mwanzo.
Mimi ni mzazi na watoto wawili, wa kike na wa kiume. Pia ndoto zangu katika watoto wangu hao wawili, cha kwanza kabisa ni kuweza kuwapatia elimu ili iweze kuwasaidia kwa maisha yao ya baadaye. Jinsi ninapozidi kutoa mimi kama mimi mzazi wake elimu, ina maana atakapozidi kukua atakuwa anajua mamangu alikuwa anatoa elimu fulani. Ina maana hata yeye atakapokuwa unaweza kashangaa anaiga ile elimu niliyokuwa naitoa, kwa sababu ni kitu ambacho amekuwa anamuona mamake anafanya.
I'm Wankyo Jacqueline Chacha. I'm a teacher. You find that most in Kuria communities, they believe that girl child is not entitled to education, but boy child is supposed to be taken to school for education. When I was in class 5, we were so many girls in our class, but we had a holiday that we were promoted to class 6. It was during circumcision, December holiday, and most girls, they went through FGM. So after that, when we were opening in January, they never reported back to school. Some were married, others were just at home. They never continued their schoolwork. And when I meet them outside there, I pity with them because they're not doing well. So this thing made me to feel like girls need to be talked to so that they can gain that knowledge about education and not focus about being married.
You find that girls who clear primary and transit to secondary, you find that we have around 40 or 50% transiting.
In the Kuria community, they believe that if you are a girl and you have not gone for a FGM, you cannot open the gate for people to pass. You cannot go to the vegetable garden, that those vegetables are going to dry up. So if they hear about that, they feel that so I have to go through this one so that I can be married. We have youth working group where we meet the stakeholders. On Wednesdays, we have guiding and counseling where we meet with the girls, we guide them. We tell them more about this child marriage, FGM. So we talk to them, we educate with them, we tell them the importance of a girl to be educated. So they can give you the challenges that they're passing through, so you assist them on how to handle them.
I would love to see our young girls standing up and speaking up to their rights.
I'll be sharing out my story to them, and I believe that through my story, they will get something from me and they will change.
Tumesaidiane kuhamasisha watu wetu kwamba ndoa za mapema si nzuri kwa sababu zinatuletea pia umaskini na vitu zingine zenye si za kawaida.
Tuna programu kama sisi inaitwa Youth Mentorship Program. Tunaalikanga wale watu ambao tunajua kwamba ni wataalamu wa mambo kama haya kuongelea mambo kama hayo. Kama kuna kipindi tumealika watu kutoka Msichana Empowerment wakakuja wakaongea na vijana wetu. Pia tunaalika pia watu wengine. We need one another.
Mara ya kwanza kupata hii elimu eti msichana astahiliwe ilikuwa ni kibarua kigumu sana. Juu familia yenye nilikuwa nimeolewa hakukuwa na mtu mwenye hajawahi tahiriwa. Watu walikuwa wametahiriwa. Nyuma kitambo nilikuwa nina support, lakini tangia tupate mafundisho hata msichana wangu hakutahiriwa. Nikaungana na wengine mkono, nikakubali msichana hata hakutahiriwa mpaka akasoma akamaliza.
In our community, since we began the conversations, we've had like a good number of elders, religious leaders having the conversation, talking about it openly. So it means it's something that they needed so much to have a chat with, but they didn't have the space.
At least FGM in Kuria has reduced. It's not at the same as when I was young, the way they were celebrating it, mostly for girls. But nowadays, they're hiding it, but it is reducing.
There's nothing you can do for communities without the community. So community ownership, community work, and community partnership is integral to all projects of this nature.
Mimi ni mmoja wa wasichana ambaye nilitamani niendelee na masomo na nilienda. Katika 10 unaweza kukuta 3 au 4. Wasichana walikuwa wachache, ila kwa wavulana walikuwa ni wengi. Tukienda moja kwa moja bila shida. Hii ni sehemu ya nini? Tukiangalia katika swala au hususan katika jamii yetu, kuna mila ya ukeketaji. Ilikuwa ni mazoea, na maana wakiona kundilika fulani mwaka fulani wamekeketwa, na wenyewe wanatamani mbona fulani aliacha shule akiwa la 6 au la 7, na yeye anatamani kuacha, au kama ameshafanywa kile kitendo akiwa la 6 na la 7, anajiona amekuwa, kwa hiyo aweza anakuwa na kakiburi fulani hivi, anaona hata ile elimu haina shida sana, inabidi anaacha.
Tangu enzi za
ya Sharon, ingia ndani ujiringe ringe. Ya bwana, ingia ndani ujiringe ringe. Imbeni na mimi jamani, mbona mnanipa nini? Ya Chief, ingia ndani ujirushe rushe ujiringe ringe. Ya Ebo, ingia ndani mjirushe rushe. Mzee, ingia ndani tukuone one. Ya stand up and yaya with me. Ya please stand up and clap and yaya with me. Ya Kaki, ingia ndani ujiringe ringe ujirusha hapa si hapa ndani. Ya mpigeni makofi. Ya Kaki, ingia ndani ujiringe ringe ujirushe rushe utikishe kiuno suka nywele tukuone one. Ya Shujaa, njoo hapa. Shujaa, ingia ndani tukuone one ujiringe ringe ucheze sukusu ucheze tikiti. Ya Princess, ingia hapa tukuone one ujiringe ringe tukuteke teke na usuke nywele zunguka tukuone. Ya Moses, sijakuona leo. Moses, ingia ndani. Mpigeni Moses makofi, mimi sijamuona leo Moses. Ya Moses, ingia ndani ujiringe ringe ucheze sukusu uende viringo. A big clap for everyone. Big clap. And welcome to our teams online. We see you, we appreciate you. We good people, we are getting into action points. We are getting into action. Remember when we started our meeting yesterday, we said this is a meeting with a difference. It's not going to be all talk. Am I right? It's not going to be all talk. We're not going to talk shop, we're going to move into action. Kuria District, you're actually in the minds of all of us. We are very conscious that it is 7 days to that D-Day. Tomorrow it will be 6 days. What are we going to do about it? Okay? This session, this panel session, this next panel session, where we are going to get more elaboration into the accelerator approach. I know it is supposed to be a panel discussion. I am not sure whether the panelists have made presentations, that they have made presentations. So we have presentations from the panelists. So we will take one by one and engage them, as opposed to actually having a panel discussion with all of them at the same time. Is this okay for Nerida, for Euphemia and Moses? Okay. And so this session, if you look at your program, you know, the accelerator approach to ending child marriage, we want to delve deeper. we want to interrogate it a little bit further from our countries. Basi tuulize na maswali. Tuulize maswali kama mambo yanatutatiza na watu wanaongea mambo ambao upande wetu katika nchi zetu haiwezekani, basi tuulize maswali. Tujue tutasaidianaje. So I think going fast, Nerida, is it your presentation? Welcome, Nerida. Please let us pay attention. While we have it at the back of our minds, remember we've said today is a day of action. Your action bado hatujajua, lakini tunajua lazima to act. Ukweli uongo? We have to do something today. So Nerida, you're welcome. Somebody is keeping for me my sanitizer. Thank you very much. Give me. I know it was around the table somewhere. You have it? Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Habari za asubuhi. I hope you're all well. If you allow me to stand, I feel I talk better when I stand. I'm not used to sitting. I really loved the discussions today, this morning, especially before we broke for tea. I agree totally with Mildred that we need to be actionable, especially as we are all key stakeholders in this fight. I call it a fight to end FGM and child marriage. So hopefully this next series of presentations will give a good idea of what's actually happening to end both child marriage and FGM in Kenya, Tanzania, focusing on child marriage in Uganda, and see what communities have actually done in action or are doing in action. Again, going back to yesterday's discussion, working together, kufanya kazi pamoja, is the only way we can actually address some of these things, especially the risks that we've been talking about, the risks that girls in our communities are still facing. So it gives me pleasure today to introduce what we call at Girls Not Brides, as well as our partners, an accelerator approach. Accelerator yani kuweka nini? Kuweka mafuta. Kukanyaga mafuta, ndio gari iende mbele, si ndio? Kuweka mafuta. Tunasema eka mafuta. So we're accelerating progress because we know it is urgent. If we don't accelerate progress, more girls will become a lost generation, is what the phrase we used yesterday. And not a lost generation, but they will face risks. At Girls Not Brides, we also believe that working with already married girls, is also critical. They are a key part of our community and society. Working with survivors of FGM is also critical. So for me, I'll just take about 5 minutes to give an introduction to what the Accelerator Project is. I think the meat of it really will come from Euphemia and Moses, and they'll be discussing what they've actually done in Uganda and Tanzania. The Tanzania project was done hand in hand with Kenya. We heard a bit from about Kenya yesterday, so that will be hand in hand. And we will also give you more information after this meeting. The documentaries actually was quite a good introduction. So if you go to the next slide, please. So our intention really was to, again, support communities more, and especially our members at Girls Not Brides that work at the community level, community-based organizations. We also wanted to really have what we call effective youth engagement, so not something that was tokenistic, where you go to youth and you say, oh, we are training the youth. Why can't you have the youth training you and telling you what they need? So youth engagement was a very big component of this Accelerator project. And then again, linking communities to what I've called halls of power, or linking communities to leadership, whatever leadership levels there are at every community, whether it is the local government, local administration, chiefs, our councils of elders, and also linking all this back to the national government. Whatever national government coordination mechanisms exist, is it through the Ministry of Gender in whatever countries, and linking the voices of the community through the implementers of the project to actually reach not only community leaders, but also national level leaders. So that was our ambition. And I have put that as our ambition. So as you hear the stories from Moses and Euphemia, you'll be able to tell us, did we meet, or are we meeting? Are we on the right track? What should we do better? Next slide, please. So as I said, why accelerate? We know that if we don't take increased action to end child marriage, we are going to have more child brides than ever. So prior to COVID, and remember with COVID, we brought about closure of schools, we've seen increased teen pregnancies, we've seen increased child marriages. Before COVID and before the pandemic hit, 100 million girls were projected to marry by 2030. This is globally. As a result of the pandemic, another 10 million, now to this 100 million, are expected to get married off by 2030. So you can see the impact of the pandemic. These numbers come from UN trends and statistics. And this afternoon, actually, there's a very exciting session about data prevalence that's going to be presented just after lunch that will give a clear picture of how this global data affects us in East Africa. We also know progress. We're hearing just even yesterday, progress is uneven. In some communities, we're seeing a reduction in child marriage and FGM. In some countries, we're also seeing a reduction. And even in countries, the progress is uneven. In countries, we have some regions that we've seen a drop. We have some regions where it's stagnant, like there's not much change. And then we have some regions where there's actually an increase in child marriage and in FGM in some circumstances. So we know that to end child marriage by 2030, which was our goal, or to reduce significantly, we have to work 17 times faster than what is already being done. What else do we need to know? There is an urgency. What else do we need to do? What aren't we doing enough? And there's an urgency to this, and that is for us one of the key things. We believe in collective power. Everyone can bring different ideas, different resources, and different reach to communities. Next slide, please. So our accelerator, the design of this project was really at the heart of it, getting communities to bring together different stakeholders from the community so that they're all focusing on this one objective. And in Uganda, as I said, the key objective was working to end child marriage, specifically in the humanitarian zone, so the refugee hosting districts. So it had a humanitarian thematic aspect to it. In Kenya and Tanzania, we focused on one community, a cross-border community. We focused on the cross-border challenge of FGM and child marriage. We focused on a community where FGM is often a precursor to child marriage, and focused on how we can effectively integrate both interventions so that we're dealing with two problems, but we're dealing with it at one go. So again, this was also to create a broad movement of change. So the implementing partners, while we had 3, it was up to the partners to actually form a movement within their own communities, a movement for change. How do you get other NGOs, other CSOs, other youth activists, councils of elders, chiefs, DCs, county leaders together so that you're working with them? They are running the project with you. So that was a key ask to our implementing partners, and we'll hear from them whether or not they achieved it. Next slide, please. So as I said, we had 2 projects. So one in Uganda that was running from 2020 up until the first half of 2021. And we were partnering with Girls No Brides Uganda. Joy for Children was our Joy for Children and 5 other organizations that are all present here. CEDO, forgive me if I don't name all of them, I'm sure Moses will name them. We're all working together in 5 districts in Uganda. These 5 districts in Uganda are refugee hosting districts, but also so working with both refugee communities and the hosting communities. And then Joy for Children was also the national level link, so working closely with the government, coordinating agencies, development partner agencies to try and link what was happening in the districts to priorities. And we'll hear from Moses some of the impact. In Kenya, we were working with Msichana Empowerment Kuria, who have present here. And in Tanzania, we were working with CDF. in Tarime district. So with Msichana Empowerment Courier is based in Migori County, right at the border and of Tarime district in Tanzania. And this project, as Sharon said, was funded by the People's Postcode Lottery. So that's just a snapshot of our accelerator approach. The girl at the center, so nothing for the girl without the girl. And the key actors we were trying to reach, or trying to ensure that they're all working together, both at the community level, the districts, and at the national level, is governments, donors, and then the outreach. So what we call the media. And this was both conventional media, but also social media champions. And I just have to say here, if you allow me to give a shout out to RTU, Raising Teens Uganda, who have been very active on social media, not only for this workshop, but prior. Kaki, please stand up and take your flowers. So if you allow me to interject, if during the course of this workshop, please go onto Twitter for those who can access Twitter. Follow Raising Teens Uganda, follow Mtoto News. The hashtags are somewhere, we'll make them, are they here? The hashtags for the workshop. Just to follow not only these proceedings, but to follow the work of this amazing organization. So hashtag Power to Girls, hashtag East Africa Learning Summit 2022. We'll hear from Moses as well and the Uganda team on how they really championed media, both conventional and unconventional, what we would call unconventional media. But now I think a lot of things now happening on the digital space, and how they effectively harness that to raise awareness, to also build movements around that, especially from the youth perspective. And then, of course, the role of civil society, which is all of us, and it includes also the people in our communities, the teachers, the youth activists, the elders, the religious leaders, who are not government but are central to getting things done at the community. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot, and I was sorry, Moses, I have preempted you. I know you're going to be addressing this. I'm not going to speak about it, but it's just a snapshot of what we managed to achieve, or what the Uganda GNBU, Girls Mob Rights Uganda, managed to achieve in a very short time, about a year, or maybe slightly over a year, using this accelerator approach, and what some of the impact was within their communities. I'm not going to say this, but if you can see some of what we had wanted to address, the communities, the government, the media, how did they effectively then get them to work together? And then what were some of the outputs? And because sometimes impact takes longer to be seen, and this project did end in 2021, if I'm not wrong, March 2021. We'll hear from him since March 2021, what's been the impact of some of these outputs. It would be great to hear from that. Next slide. So I'll give just an overview of some of the 4 key areas we were focusing on during this project. That is igniting youth action. We have youth activists from Uganda present, from Kenya, from Tanzania. A key part, and one thing that we're really encouraged by, is that the youth activists we worked with in Uganda in 2020 then became mentors for the youth activists that we are currently working with in Tanzania and Tanzania and Kenya. And that's been a key part of cross-learning, peer learning, but also the fact that these youth activists by themselves have taken it upon themselves to not only go within their own communities, but go beyond their communities and really work closely with our youth in this region. Next slide, please. And then learning, sharing, movement building, again for us a key part. How were they able to build movements within those districts? And how are they able to link those movements within each district, each county, to what's happening at the national level? Next slide. And then again, what I'd said is just how do you link what's happening at the national level to the community level? How do you link it to the key decision makers, whether this be community leaders or government representatives, so that whatever you're doing not only has support, but is able to be sustained beyond the lifespan of the project. These projects usually have a very short lifespan. But how do you integrate it within the priorities of key decision makers within your community. And decision makers is not only governments, but it's also especially community leaders, elders, religious leaders, or whoever holds a form of influence within the communities. So we'll hear from Euphemia and Moses how they managed to integrate this. Next slide, please. And then, of course, shifting attitudes and norms, which takes a very long time. But I think a key part of this project was how do we effectively harness the voice of young people so that they're at the forefront of asking people to change attitudes. And then how do we support them, the voices of young people, by making sure we have champions within the communities who are supporting this. So you have a young woman going to say, look, we need to end FGM, we need to end child marriage. And then we have an elder who's saying the same thing. And sort of the voice is then resounded, the message becomes very clear. So those are two of the religious leaders that GNBU was working with who are great champions. I think in Isingiro district, I'm not sure. So next slide, please. So I'll leave you with three things. This intervention is what is often called micro level. That means that we are focusing on communities because we know that's where change happens. But we know that over and above the project districts, there's a need to accelerate progress. So how do we take this impact from this relatively small number of districts? So there's one county in Kenya, one district in Tanzania, and 5 districts in Uganda that we were working with just for this project. How do we replicate this? How do we take these lessons to the entire region, to all the parts that are needed in the country, so the 3 countries. The second thing is, we know social change. Changing social norms takes a while, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. There are some communities, even here in Kenya, that have abandoned FGM in literally 1 generation. My community, my great-grandmother underwent the cut. My grandmother underwent the cut. My mother did not. She was the number 6 girl. The 3 girls before her, my aunties, did undergo the cut. What does this mean? That change is possible just in literally one generation. For me, I leave it. So it is possible. So while we say it takes some time, it is still possible. So what can we do for these short-term projects that are usually 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, to sustain the impact and the momentum that we have built up with our projects? So really thinking critically, even at the beginning of the project, is when I leave the project, who will maintain the momentum? And then that's the third question. So thank you very much. I probably took longer than 5 minutes. Back to you, Mildred, and then to invite the rest who will give a more practical sense of what the project was about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Club, for Nerida. Before you sit, Nerida, just quickly asking, if we are connecting our efforts between Kenya and Uganda for the greater good, how practical is that within the movement? And I haven't brought in Tanzania, connecting the efforts. There are religious leaders in Kenya, there are cultural leaders in Kenya, there are religious and cultural leaders in Uganda. In terms of exchanging, to just see how they can strengthen this. And anybody else who wants to engage in Nerida briefly before I call in the next speaker.
Yes, thank you. I'll be a bit naughty and cheeky and say, I'm going to ask Euphemia and Moses to speak about that. But from my perspective as Girls of the Secretariat, I think providing an opportunity to convene leaders, but also provide an opportunity for GNBU to speak to GNB Kenya and see what are the commonalities, what can we exchange, how can we work together, how can we get our key champions to speak with one voice at whatever influential spaces that we might find. How do we also get maybe our champions to reach out to our governments, speaking in one voice and say, look, we are the East African champions to end child marriage. We're made up of religious leaders, we're made up of girls, we're made up of youth activists, and we present something. We ask them for commitments. How are they working together? And I'm thinking also of Tanzania, some of the cross-border issues that we're having. If we do get it, a commitment, a declaration that we ask our governments, we hold them accountable and say, look, you've committed at the UN level, at the AU level, what are you doing in East Africa? Can you sign this commitment for us? I think maybe we can start to see some traction. I'm looking at Moses because I know he has a really great presentation about that, and he'll be able to speak about that.
So therefore, we invite Moses. Are we okay, good people? Do we? Yeah? Okay. I'm looking for the other roving mic. Maybe it fell inside your bag. The one that doesn't have a cable. No, there was one that didn't have a cable. Thank you. Moses, do you want to come up here? Okay. Yes. Oh. Okay. Thank you, Moses. So, how much time did you project for yourself, my brother?
Oh, they had given me 10.
Are you sure?
Yes.
They were very generous, but let's see if we can get 7.
Okay, I will skip some slides.
Welcome, Moses. Welcome. Okay.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm called Moses Sintenga, and I'm the Director Joy for Children, but also co-chair Girls Not Braids Uganda. The presentation, I'm not sure if they're going to be flash it. Yeah, but also before that, I don't know if the video is ready. Trying to use that. What? Is it starting? Yeah, I think before maybe as the video is getting ready, I want to mention that we implemented the Accelerator project at the time when COVID was actually at its peak, because we were meant to start in March, and I think that's the same time when the lockdown was there. So we had a little bit to delay, I think not until around May, but also we, during that time, also doing some online planning and so on. So my presentation today is just based on a few aspects, especially on the legislative advocacy, because I didn't go into the full length of the entire project, because that was not what was asked me to present. Yes, maybe before, I don't know if yeah, so my presentation is just looking at what we did in terms of engaging legislators in our country and what kind of things we are beginning to see, and also probably how we can continue supporting that work. I have a video that I had prepared, one that we captured when we were having a discussion with members of parliament to table a motion at the floor of parliament, and I thought it would be very useful for us to hear, but also to learn how we can also work with the members of parliament in our own countries to contribute to ending child marriage. Yeah, maybe just not to waste time.
This meeting is for the This meeting is for the girls that got married or are about to get married, or those that are pregnant or gave birth a few weeks ago. And we want to see a future where every girl is able to grow, protected, have education, get very good paying jobs, and go back, help themselves and help their families. It's all our dream. The parliamentarians play a big role, and both the oversight and planning and legislation, and we thought you'd help us in this time have a discussion at the floor of parliament on what we need to do as a country to move forward in ending child marriage and teenage pregnancy, but also supporting the already married girls.
The motion is titled Motion for a Resolution of Parliament urging government to establish and implement stringent enforcement policies and measures to protect girls against escalating cases of child marriage and teenage pregnancy.
Maybe one of the recommendations should be that government should provide resources and enhance credit facilities for families, so that there is increased household income, and they are able to keep their children in school, because that is also an issue. We have seen that kids drop out because of lack of school fees, among other things.
In Busoga, we have a serious dilemma that in most of these things are not talked about openly.
I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Is it what you shared? Maybe when you are loading it up, probably it could have shortened. Hmm? Yes, so thank you. So I think that was the kind of the start of the kind of conversation that we had, and I find them very interesting when you hear from legislators on what they think and what probably needs to be done. And out of this, from this video, that we sat in the room like this and were able to draft and input into the motion that was finally tabled in the floor of Parliament, and it had generated very good discussions and very good concrete recommendations were given. But also from there, we saw a lot of other motions actually on the girl child being tabled that eventually it has resulted into the government at the cabinet level to come up with a program or a campaign to end child marriage and teenage pregnancy. So I think that's what can happen, and we want to appreciate that. Since this project also was looking at a multi-sectoral approach, looking at different entities within the government that can have a role to play, I think this was a very good example for us to showcase today. So one of the things that I'm going to look at is a little bit about who we are at GNB, the child marriage in Uganda, but also look at the Overview Accelerator project, then also talk about multi-sectoral approach and ending child marriage, and also we'll end with a few of the actions that we took to engage members of parliament to end child marriage. So Girls Not Brides Uganda, like you all may know by now, that it's a national alliance of more than 100 civil society organizations working to end child marriage. We have both international NGOs, national NGOs, and also grassroots civil society organization. It's an official partner of Girls Not Brides, working to Girls Not Brides, the global partnership to end child marriage. In Uganda, according to the latest statistics, we have Uganda is a home of 5 million child brides, and of these 1.3 million girls are married before the age of 15. So you can imagine the 1.3 million that are in already unions at that age. But also we have an article that was featured, which we worked and collaborated with the media and gave information and contacts to document the first case of child marriage during the COVID-19. So the report looked at 2,300 girls conceived and 128 married off during the lockdown. And these were a few districts where we were working, and this was highlighted. And this report went far and wide because many players referred to it and also shared and generated a lot of discussion around the need to focus on girls. At that time, there was no interest in hearing about issues of girls getting married because they better be home and pregnant but not dying of COVID-19. So one thing we thought, can't we do both, prevent COVID-19 but also prevent pregnancies and child marriages? So that's what came out during that time of Accelerator project. Then in 2020, I want to say specifically on Accelerator project that GNB implemented a project accelerating progress to end child marriage in Uganda. The project was implemented through 5 members of Girls Not Brides in refugee hosting communities, where we had Kamwenge and were represented by Kana Foundation. Unfortunately, the representative was not able to make it. We were in Isinjiro, represented by Raising Teenagers. We are also in Kiriandongo by SEDO, the representative is there. Chegegwa, we had the Fora, we have Christian there. And Arua, we have Patience representing MEMPRO organization. And the project, Accelerator project in Uganda, we are looking at a project that aimed at unlocking the potential of a wide range of partners, encouraging them to increase and collaborate to demonstrate that accelerated change at scale is possible. And I think this is the gist of this whole project, that can we reach so many partners? Can we reach so many partners and have a conversation with them, show them how devastating the issue of child marriage is, so that even along the way, as individuals, as organizations, can also start doing something on ending child marriage. It was a project that was 1 year, and we couldn't do so much. But one of the things that was very critical is to bring this topic in the discussion of different sectors, and which we were able to do. And then also what we are using as approach also was a multi-sector in nature, because child marriage is not an issue we can address from one entity. Like say we are going to look at social services, we're going to look at education and health. It is multi-sector in nature. And I was discussing with one of our members yesterday that when you talk about what is the budget, to use the words in Uganda, people say, but we have built roads to end child marriage. We have built schools to end child marriage. We are supporting agriculture to end child marriage. What do they mean? That when you do good roads and children are able to commit to go to schools, if you improve agriculture and parents have income, they're able to send their children to school, then you will be contributing to reducing child marriage. But of course, that's some discussion we can have deeper. But it still tells us that we can't look at one entity in our countries, that's where we're going to have impact on reducing child marriage. And of course, as many of you will agree that we don't have a silver bullet, like you get something once and say, when we shoot here, then everything will be done. But we need to engage different partners at different levels. So during this project, we engaged government institutions, development partners, including civil society organizations, that are at the fore of its implementation through different levels. Because at that time also we're implementing the national strategy to end child marriage. And it had a number of stakeholders that we need to engage. And we tried as much as possible to reach that level. And then the other people that probably I want to mention that we're able to engage very critically, we engaged the Uganda Human Rights Commission, which also documented some cases of child marriage within our government. We engaged heavily Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. We also engaged the Ministry of Education. We engaged the Ministry of Health. We engaged cultural and religious leaders during that time. And also at the grassroots level, we had champions who were much drawn from the cultural and traditional leaders on the ground. We also moved to sign MOUs with the cultural institutions. In Uganda, we still have kingdoms that are very strong and prominent, and we worked with those to highlight issues of child marriage, but also the media, as I saw, and there were so many articles there that followed, because people got to know that, yes, we have messages of COVID going on, but also under that, there are a lot of other issues that are not being mentioned, including issues of GBV that were extremely high that we, however, are seen. So I want also to briefly talk about legislative advocacy at the point of this discussion, which refers to efforts to influence the introduction of enactment or modification of legislation. The most common means of legislation advocacy is direct lobbying, which entails contacting legislators, sharing your views on issues and asking him or her to vote specifically on the bill. And this can be done with something as easy as a phone call, a letter, or a formal meeting with the legislators or the personnel. And this, I think, because we are learning, we realize that we've been working with members of parliament, but we realize that having members like in this meeting is not very effective compared to when you sit down with one member of parliament and have a cup of coffee and share with them information, and then they can move this issue. To table a motion in parliament, you need about 3 people. You need a mover and some 3 seconders. And so sometimes we have these meetings. I don't know, say you have to have meetings to engage members of parliament, and you think you'll get 5 or 10 or 20. But those meetings we have had of 20 have not yielded results. So when you move and meet 1 or 2 and talk to them, then they move and take action. So that's something we are learning, and I think we can also borrow. And also, in terms even of engaging other actors, I think we need to again rethink our approaches. You need one person to make a decision, maybe a minister, but then you have to call the entire government, about 30 or 40 people, and they take tea and they have discussion and they go. And nothing gets done. And yet that conversation can be agreed upon through a bilateral conversation with 1 or 2 people that have a say. So, as we all know, our Parliament of Uganda, probably like it is in your countries, one of their cardinal roles is legislation. They make laws. They make laws, prepare, they get laws, and then they get debated and then approved. But also they do budget approval appropriation. So that's part of their work. But also they do representation and oversight. Now, these core areas are very crucial in ending child marriage because there are issues concerning the law that perpetuate child marriage. For example, in Uganda, we have contradiction in laws. Customary law talks about a girl can get married with the consent of a parent, but then the constitution talks about the age of 18. So we have that discrepancy between those two laws. But also, through our work with the members of parliament, then we saw also the Children's the Children's Act being amended to include child marriage among those offenses against children. But also they do the budget. And the part of our work has been, yes, we want to address child marriage, but where is the money for child marriage? And that also becomes very critical that we need to engage members of parliament to see during their budget processes appropriation, where are the monies that probably we can say these are earmarked to support girls. For example, in Uganda, as you would have heard with the members of parliament, we're looking at increasing some funding for women, because in Uganda we have a women's fund. Can we increase that money so that girls who are at risk or who are vulnerable can also benefit from that? We have the Youth Livelihood Fund that also could help these young girls that are at risk of getting married to be able to support themselves economically and can continue the education to sustain their lives. Then we have representation. And you know these girls, wherever they are coming from, where the MPs are from, that's even where the girls are getting married from. So engaging members of parliament can be a very good asset in terms of mobilizing communities and also speaking against the issue of child marriage, but also bringing those very issues into all organs of government, because some of the members of parliament, for example, of Uganda, of Uganda, some members of parliament are the ones also sit in the cabinet. Actually, you can say that majority members of cabinet are MPs. So, you know, they play that double role, and that means they have direct access to the president, they have direct access to the power that governs the country. So they have also the oversight role, which I think we need to see the programs that are happening to end child marriage, how are they actually being effected. So for us, what we did was to, as working with the parliament, for us who want to do the same, is identification of MPs. Especially we focused on two forums in the parliament, the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Children and the Uganda Women's Parliamentary Association. So these were two critical areas of association that we engaged to get members that formed the parliamentary working group on ending child marriage that we have been engaging and we continue to engage when it comes to matters of child marriage. Then we also conducted sensitization of MPs on issue of child marriage. We looked at the drivers, opportunities, and challenges of addressing it. Then we also, working with the members of parliament, tabled a report by Uganda Human Rights Commission that highlighted issues of child marriage. And also later, we had the conversation that we had and tabled the motion on ending child marriage. And this motion generated a lot of recommendations like Adalia highlighted, and we need as GNB, Uganda, and other partners to follow up about some of these recommendations. Some of them included doing an audit in Uganda to see what is the magnitude of girls that were married or got pregnant during the COVID-19. Because without numbers, we cannot do much. Then the motion passed the motion or resolution of parliament urging government to develop and enforce policies and strategies to protect girls against escalating cases of child marriage and teenage pregnancies during and after COVID pandemic. Then also we participated and contributed in the passing of sexual offences bill that also criminalizes some of the issues of child marriages. But also we had to sign MOU with the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Children so that we have a very clear terms of work, but also being able to rely on one another and depending. So the photo you see on my left is the chairperson of Uganda Parliamentary Forum signing a commitment at the National Girls Summit. And she chaired the Children's Forum during the summit because we wanted her to hear issues of children firsthand and then be able to take the same voices in Parliament. Yes? Okay, yeah, so that's what we did. Then also we had, I've talked about sending MOU, the tabling of 4 motions. I think within 8 months, we have had the Parliament very busy discussing issues of girls within Parliament, and we're getting overwhelming support because of our continued and persistent conversation with them around the need to support the young girls to be able to maximize their potential. But also, there are a number of to watch it now or later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you very much. A big clap for Moses. I realize as Moses is talking that engaging legislators and policymakers means you have to learn and understand how the legislators work. You see, sometimes we complain that they're not picking up our issues, but we need to understand the processes of engaging them, understand how the law works. You want a bill formulated, how do you connect the dots to the point when it gets to the House? You understand? So, I mean, well done for your team, because I mean, it's an uphill task trying to grab their attention to push the motion. So thank you. We are going to have more discussions on that after. Euphemia, are you ready, my dear? Yes, yes. Let's listen to Euphemia now. And you know, I know the time is getting very thin and limited, but not to worry. We still have some time to do our next engagement on the youth advocacy, and we will do that. Welcome, Euphemia. Please, let's pay attention and then engage our panelists. Let's engage them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. I will present briefly on how we have managed to integrate ending child marriage intervention within anti-FGM programming. When I heard about this topic, I remember in one of the discussions we had in the community way back, and we were discussing between FGM and child marriage, which came earlier than the other. Maybe Mzee Zakaria will let us know baadaye, because he have lived at least most of the generation. But we didn't get a conclusion between FGM and child marriage, which came before the other. And as I was reading some materials, I found this interesting quotes from the Voices of Tarime Child Brides, which was published in 2010. Next slide, please. And one of the child brides was saying that most of the times after FGM, children are married off. So she was concerned that taking children early through FGM results into early marriage. But interestingly, another was saying that when she was already married, she was insulted continuously by her in-laws because she was not mutilated. And they even made arrangements for her to be cut, and she was even had the celebrations and cows were slaughtered and all that. So these two quotes again reminded me of the conversation, and it couldn't answer my question on which came before the other. But also my experience from the communities shows that, and why did we take Tarime as a case study for this topic? Because these practices doesn't work the same in every community. FGM is an influence of child marriage in Tarime, but not necessarily in other regions. For instance, in Tanzania, we have regions like Singida, where female FGM is in high rates, but you may not find child marriage. But also we have regions like Shinyanga, where we have very high rate of child marriage, actually the leading in the country. But you will find very minor cases, almost negligible, of FGM. So I think it's an area we can have more discussion. But now looking at Tarime case, how does the two interlink? First, in Tarime, we find that child marriage and FGM, they are both influenced by the similar factors. We are talking about traditions and customs, the representation within the community, like if you're not cut, the way the community take you, if you delayed marriage, the way the community perceive you, and not necessarily have to do with poverty. Like the Korea are not poor, yeah, they have a lot of food. Even when I go to Tarime, I really don't want to go to Dar es Salaam, because life there there's no issue to do with poverty. So it's more of their tradition and their culture that influence both child marriage and FGM, and that's where we find the interlinkage. But also, traditionally, as explained earlier on the courts, child marriage follows immediately after FGM, and it's actually it speed up the process. Like you have to be cut to be married immediately. And also, in terms of impact, both the practices, they have serious impact on both individuals, society, and the economy. It actually increases the impact. Like when you are cut and married, it seems it means you experience the impact twice. And if we look of impacts on health, on physical, but also in terms of society and how child marriage costs the economy. But also in terms of sexual reproductive health rights, both child marriage and FGM, they are public health concerns because they have greater issues to do with controlling sexuality, but also they have issues to do with maternal death and all these issues affecting women and their sexual reproductive health rights. So I will explain some of the strategies that have been working to tackle both child marriage and FGM at the same time. And these are strategies, some we have been using as part of the Accelerator project, but even beyond the Accelerator project in tackling these two harmful practices. One of the strategies that have worked for us is to create an enabling environment for girls to exercise their rights. Yesterday we were having this discussion about the safe space, but also the leadership development among the youth and the girls themselves. And with this we have clubs. We have clubs in and out of school where we first build capacity of the girls, because they're the ones who are most affected, to understand these issues in depth and to be able to stand up against the issues. But also we have witnessing these girls that we have reached with the knowledge, with the leadership capacity, even extending supporting to their peers, like supporting their peers to run away during the FGM season, but also leading the conversations in their community. Coming to the youth leadership and activism, this was more relevant with the Accelerator project because it puts the young people at the center of the discussion. We'll hear more later on the session on the youth engagement, on how this young people in the Kuria community have become the engine. They are leading conversations in their own community, but also they are living the moment, because, you know, when we have that intergenerational changes over a long time, if we have a bigger group of young people who believes that child marriage and FGM should end, I'm imagining maybe in 20 years when we have now the generation changed, then we can have all these practices end completely. Engaging men and boys is very important, and for the case of Tarime, men are the primary beneficiary of these practices, because if a girl is cut to be married, it means like to please the man, like the man can marry early. But also in Kuria community, men are influencers within the community. They are the gatekeepers. When you speak of traditional leaders, they are men. Speaking of religious leaders, most of them, they are men. But also the power they have. So we have been engaging men and boys using different approaches, using the coffee sessions within their locality. We look for men on their usual spaces within the community and having this conversation, which now at the end, they are aim to disrupt the harmful norms and to have the conversation. When we had also the intergenerational dialogue, and mostly led by the young people within the community, like trying to create the mindset change regarding these harmful practices. But also improving access to multisectoral services is very important. So we have been working in partnership with the service providers, with the response mechanism, with the police, gender and children desk, who have been supporting in rescuing girls, especially during the cutting season, but also promoting the right to education, working with other stakeholders who are working in these multiple other factors that have an influence on child marriage. But also we have been working to build partnership at different levels, building partnership with the government at the local level. But in Tanzania, we have the National Plan of Action Against Child Marriage. And this goes to my next point on adopting VALC framework that addresses wider issues that influence girls' rights. So we have been working in partnership with the government from the local level to national level to make sure that the harmful practices become their agenda, but also they put resources on ending the same, but also they support the girls, especially with the response mechanism, which the government has a greater mandate to do that. But also we have sustainable partnerships with the religious leaders, traditional leaders, like-minded organizations working on different issues. But also creating a supportive legal and policy framework and enforcement is very important. For the FGM, we have a law which is very clear, but there are still some challenges with the enforcement. But for the child marriage, as you all know, we have been working on the amendment of the Law of Marriage Act. We are still making some progress. We have begun this advocacy at national level for such a long time, and even the High Court declared the Law of Marriage Act unconstitutional, but now we are working as TCMA, and we are working very closely with the members of parliament to make sure that the law is amended, but also after the amendment, we also need to follow up in terms of enforcement. But also on media advocacy, we know the power of media is very important, so we work with different medias from national level to local level. And for the case of Tarime, we have partnerships with the community radios, and sometimes we have even these sessions aired in their local language, in the Kuria community, to make sure that we leave no one behind with the messages on ending these harmful practices. And these have been more evident, especially during the COVID season. For our colleagues in Kenya, they had more strict measures, and at some point they couldn't do their dialogues during the Accelerator project, and the community radios were really helpful for them in reaching out the community and make sure that the conversation continues even within the COVID-19 context. So what are the gaps that we are experiencing on addressing the two harmful practices? First of all, social norm change requires a long-term investment. Like it's not something that can happen rapidly. So we need more long-term fundings, long-term programs within the community, because the moment you are in the community, you lead the conversation for 1-2 years, and then you leave. When you come back, it's easy for them to get back to the practice. So it's something that needs ongoing investment, ongoing advocacy to make sure we change. But also inadequate legislative framework and enforcement. I already explained that. We still doesn't have a really supportive or friendly laws and policies that support girls' rights in the country, and we are working on advocating for that. But also there is an influence of politics which affects effective programming, because when you look on the amendment of the law, what is delaying the amendment of the law is just the lack of political will. But also coming to the FGM, in most cases the politicians, they are obligated to support their culture, so as for them to win votes and all that. So you find that for maybe civil society organization and the youth activists, when we send a positive messages on the community on ending the harmful practices, but when the politicians come, they tell them, you know, keep going, this is our culture, I support our culture, so that, you know, the priority of each politician is to win the trust of their people. So when they send these contradictory messages, it becomes, it sometimes distorts the good work we have been doing in the community to end these practices. But also we have issues with safe houses and shelters, and this is not only on ending the harmful practices or addressing the FGM, but also generally other forms of violence that affect women, because sometimes the survivors, they are forced to go and stay back with the perpetrators. And this leads also to, in the terms of access to justice. Yesterday, when we were having discussions on access to justice and why it is difficult for a person to go to court to provide evidence, maybe for relatives, because if this survivor is staying with the same perpetrators because there is no safe house to keep her, there is no shelter, it is very likely that it is very likely to distort even the evidence, and you find these cases, they do not reach anywhere. But also the safe houses that we have, especially during the cutting season, where the number of girls who are running is very high, sometimes they are not enough to accommodate all these girls. but also the lack of effective cross-border legal and policy framework to address the cross-border issues. Because when a perpetrator is from Kenya and is caught in Tanzania, there is no explicit law that can make him held accountable on the other side. So moving forward, we may need to have a legal and policy framework that supports addressing these issues in a comprehensive way. I'm going to my last slide. So what is the conclusion and what are the key lessons learned on addressing the two practices? First of all, men should never be left behind when we talk of these things. You know, before the theory of engaging men and boys came, the gender issues, they were being taught as women issue. Most of the times, you know, when you bring even these discussions in the community, people will took them as in, these are women issue. They have nothing to do with us. So as we move forward, it is very important to use this the influential power of men to accelerate the changes that we want to see regarding child marriage and FGM. But also empowered children and young women, they are very powerful agents of social change and they should not be left behind. And this also include investing in capacity, building their capacity, providing them with platforms to exercise their voice, their talent, and then people, they are even more innovative in reaching out to the community. When you go to villages and the youth are leading the conversation, most of the times maybe we go with maybe the policy language, which might be too complicated for a village person to understand. But the young people can make a very simple drama or just a song, but it can send a very strong messages to the community. So it's very important to continue working with the youth, particularly the young women, in raising their voices in the community. But also sectoral coordination among different stakeholders. We're talking about healthcare providers, teachers, police, gender and children desk, and all other stakeholders is very important. Is very important for them to address in both prevention and addressing the harmful practices. But also we need to adopt a multiple approach of doing both prevention and also providing support to those who are already affected. This is the issue, the question that becomes most relevant when we are discussing on the issue of reentry to school. You know, even the government, their mindset is when you allow this to school, other girls will be encouraged that since we can become pregnant and go back to school, then it's not a problem. So this is the discussion we had earlier, that girls are not allowed back to school because other girls will see that as an opportunity. I can have both a baby and go to school. But that is not the idea. So we really need, as far as we struggle with preventing this harmful practices from happening, we need to provide also support. Economic empowerment programs that we have for young women has proved to be very powerful. And once these survivors have been reintegrated with their communities and have been capacitated, they have been provided with psychosocial support, they become very powerful in bringing changes in the community. So those who are already married or already cut should not be left behind in our interventions. But also evidence generation to inform advocacy and programming is also very important. We need to invest on doing research to understand in depth of this and to get to know on the better strategies that can work on addressing this. But also schools, we need to continue increase partnership with schools, and even evidence shows that the longer the girls stay at school, it's more likely to delay the marriage than when they are not at school. So we should not leave the education sector behind as we work to address these practices. So thank you very much, and let's all take action to end child marriage and FGM. Thank you.
Welcome. Joining online. Joining online. A bit. Hello, is it clear enough? No. I thank you, Joyce Mudachi from Tanzania. Joyce Mudachi, thank you very much. I see you're congratulating our colleagues from Uganda. Joyce, you said this is very important to be connected and sharing lessons learned and experiences from each other that will help much if a certain country missed the impactful approach. I also have this nice comment here. Okay, Nankunda Hope says working with members of parliament is a game changer. Great presentation, Moses. And Stella, I hope I don't miss that. Stella Swani from Kenya, you said, Stella Swani from Kenya, I love your thoughts on working closely with policymakers who actually implement these laws. More finances should be allocated to women and young girls and have policies that can be pushed and tabled in Parliament. Please continue engaging online. We thank you very much, our colleagues joining us virtually. I want to open the floor to some 5 minutes of discussion. You know, every time we talk about girls fall pregnant, girls don't fall pregnant. Girls are made pregnant. Girls don't fall? Am I the only one who thinks that like that? Hey. I always push that we change the narrative. After COVID, we had headlines that said over 5,000 girls fell pregnant during the COVID. We didn't have headlines that said 5,000 rapists abused 5,000 girls. The narrative has to change. Because that's a pedophile, it's a rapist, this is a child. But you see, we are always disempowering girls more. They fell pregnant. So she's already a victim. We are victimizing more. But those are my thoughts. I want to open the floor to at least 5 minutes of discussions on the presentations made. If you have thoughts that you want to share, please, this is the time. Let me start over with you.
Maybe just a question to Nehemiah and the Tanzanians. What was the impact of the presidential directive on schools going back, on girls, teenage girls not going back, pregnant girls not going back to school? And what has now changed after the directive was reversed? What are some of the things you may have been engaged in during that period? Just want to learn some useful lessons from that.
That's for Tanzania. Do we have another interjection before Tanzania speaks? Okay, this side. Thank you for helping me with my workout. By the time I'm done.
Hello. Hello.
I think somebody's. Okay. Just a moment. Nana, you go and take online.
Okay, thank you very much. I just love both presentations. And one of the things I want to ask is about sectoral coordination. And I know it's so critical, but at the same time, what often happens is that government tend to leave that responsibility for NGOs to fund. So even though it should be a government responsibility, how do we change that dynamic? Because NGOs should not be the ones coordinating the government programs. Right. And so it's really important that how do we do that? And Moses, you mentioned the work in Parliament. I would really be interested in showing how you funded that. Because a lot of times it becomes the CEO's responsibility to fund it. And that in itself is problematic.
Right. Moses, I hope you got that. So we've got some joining us online. Or one more. Okay, let's go ahead, Ebo.
Okay, thank you. One is to appreciate Moses and Euphemia for a great presentation. But mine is to build up on what Nana has said. This is what has been done through the CSOs. So what is their strategy in terms of complementing it or taking it back to the government so that the sustainability goes on? Because that is what we have been talking about.
Connect the dots.
Yeah, connect the dots to the end. And then the other question is to both of them. So much has been done, but are we documenting and is there research that has informed your processes? And if so, then how much have you done in terms of the government had like previous baselines and where these cases have reported.
Right.
What are the milestones?
Right.
So that they can inform the next strategies, because I heard Tanzania has a national policy on ending child marriage, and if it is, it has data which you work in regions, is it not counties, like districts?
Yes.
Yes, they are red alert districts, and then there are the other ones. Could their data inform in terms of the baseline plus where they are? And then the last thing. The last one, just the last one, is the aspect of school approach. I love it, but is there a way that they've done like age-appropriate message development, which we could learn?
Appropriate message development.
Yes, so that in the approach of integrating in school, probably curriculums or even guides,
Right.
we can learn from them how do we talk to our girls at the right age.
Right, Euphemia Moses, you got that? I need to just welcome a participant online. Let us see, please introduce yourself, our dear colleagues, as you ask your question. Chitra.
Yes.
Yes,
This is Chitra. Are you listening?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. Thank you, the great presenter. I have not gone through the all presenters, but lastly I have visited two presenters. Last one I have seen very crucial and content issue raised by Tanzania. So far is Nepal. We have also the implementing the global program in 4 sub-national level in Nepal since last 5 years. And we have a success to carry out different changes in the sub-national level. And I have one very crucial question to the last presenter, that in Nepal, in South Asia, the child marriage, the decisive role especially goes to the parent. The parent means the father or husband. Husband has very crucial role to determine the child marriage. So I have not seen, I have not gone through the scenario of the South Africa, what percent the father or parent have a role to determine the child marriage. And I have not seen that there's a parental education, a focus of parental education to reduce the child marriage in that scenario. If any scenario in that region, then you can share us, then that is appropriate for in our country also. This is my one very, not a specific question, it is a kind of a suggestion to the presenter. Okay, thank you.
Questions were from my colleague here. Mine, I think I have, yes, I think in terms of the motion, well, we've been much more supporting or convening some of members of parliament to be able to discuss some of these issues, because of course, where we have interest as well, so we have to do some investment, because there are so many competing priorities still within the House, within the country. And through a series of meetings that we engaged, and also finally agreeing on what we want to do, but also them as members parliament expressing their need or the gaps they have within the House. I think the first action was, let's do the motion, but also there are other pertinent issues they want us to really support as civil society, issues of data. Can we give them data so that when they're going to put on for parliament, they have some information that back up their work? And I see Nana nodding her head. I see that happening. But also, it also goes back again to our own in-the-country dynamics. Who cares if you don't push for the things? Other things will go on. And for us, what we did was to do the convenings, but also walk in the corridors of parliament, because it's not that you have to meet the member of parliament. There are drafters, there are legal minds within parliament. There you have to meet a speaker, you must have this schedule. So it's a long way, and much of it cannot be done just in the room, but you have to move to every office, every official who has a hand in terms of pushing this. And what is most interesting, that the motion, I think, before it gets to the Member of Parliament, it has been done to 99% by the other technical staff of Parliament. So it's not about going to Member of Parliament, but also going through the technical teams in there. So Nana, to be straight to your question, yes, we did support these convenings with the resources that we had for the project to be able to have this motion tabled. I'm open for guidance and discussion on how we can roll the government to do things without support from civil society organizations. And I think that will mean sustainability, and also mean that we have achieved in a big way. Yes, we did documentation. My colleague asked about documentation. All these processes are documented, the reports are available, but like he said, many of them may not have been shared, and you see also we're struggling sharing the video. But yes, we have all these processes documented. And then ending child marriage, yes, we have, in Uganda, we did a baseline survey or study by government-led on ending child marriage, which informed the national strategy, which expired in 2020. But also there was a mid-term review of that national strategy, and we have the copy available shared with NERIDA, which highlights the progress has been made. However, I want also to mention that when we have the study in there, it may not look as exact what we expected. But also as an alliance in Uganda, we had to do our own independent study on what was done in terms of implementation of the strategy and what can be useful to inform the next phase. As we are talking now, already regional consultations have been made by the Ministry of Gender to draft a new strategy. And on next week, on the 8th and 9th of March, we're going to have national conversations, I think, with members of GNB and other CSOs, but also with the government ministries and departments. We are going to have those meetings, and GNB and Joy for Children, we are supporting those convenings. And so we hope that the next document will be much better than the past one, and we're able to implement it much, and also address some of the concerns that we have experienced. I think the issue, what this project, I think it's something that we need to discuss also with our donors. There is a big yearning for advocacy in terms of ending child marriage. And advocacy, we're looking at government entities that we have a hand to do. And in most cases, you find issues of engaging the communities, the parents and the girls has been left aside. In the communities where we worked under Accelerator Project, in Isinjiro, Kamwenge, everywhere else, they were talking that can you have engagement, direct engagement with girls and the parents, but unfortunately that was not part of the project design. But if there is something that needs to be done, let's combine both advocacy, but also reaching out to the girls at risk and the parents, because the decision to marry a girl, it is a father who says, I need 2 cows, take my girl. But this guy, this man is not brought on board, and that's why I think somebody was asking, I think from Pakistan, I think from Asia, from Nepal, that's where the fathers. And somebody in the room yesterday was also whispering, fathering, was mentioning about fatherization. Yes, can we know that we have been able to reach 1,000 fathers and have committed not to marry their daughters? And I know the challenge with that is that it's more retail. You have to meet so many fathers. It takes a lot of time, and probably also the impact doesn't come very quickly. And yet our donors, most times, they want big things. We had these meetings, we had that. But now going down becomes a little bit, I think, a bit complicated. And I think that's why let's run grassroots work.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you very much. When you talk about fatherization, I think it was communities in Narok or Kajiado where the men came up to say we are ready to marry girls who are not circumcised. Was it in Kajiado? Because it was against, and for me, I found that very powerful. In a way, in terms of an approach, although it was controversial. Yes. Now, Euphemia, as you respond, there's a question here from Jonan Kiakusimira, who says, Thanks so much, presenter from Tanzania. However, how do you integrate to support girls and young women living with disabilities within your program? And there's quite a lot of sharing online. Thanks very much to our participants online. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I'll start with the first questions on the impact of presidential directive on girls going back to school. I must say that for stakeholders working on promoting girls' rights, for us this was a milestone because it's something that we have been longing for. So when the presidential directives came, for us we directly got into work and to see how we can quickly support the implementation of the statement. And if there have been any changes, yes, there have been any changes. We have seen some of the girls who are starting to report back to school. However, there are still challenges to do with the community acceptance of the new policy or the new, no, we don't have a policy at place, but on the directives, like as a teenage pregnancy is a multi-sectoral issue. It's also a social norms issue. So like the community to really accept that this child should go back to school. Sometimes these girls get difficulty in accessing support. They need to go back to school, like issues with the exercise books, the uniform, and all that. But also another question of the person to take care of the baby. And now we have a draft guideline that will guide the process of these girls going back to school. It is still under review and stakeholders are allowed to give their input. So we believe that once the guideline is complete, it will provide an opportunity for the effective implementation of this directive, but also to have, as this came as only as a statement, but to have more as a policy or a law to make sure that, we have that confidence that this is a long-term initiative of supporting girls going back to school. Another question on documenting. Yes, we have all these achievement approaches we use documented in our different reports. Like for Tsemen, we had yesterday about the Tsemen achievement report, but also we have different organization reports that can be found on our websites, but also shared with our partners and other members. In terms of research, yes, we do a lot of research, and specifically on child marriage. On 2016, we did a research on the drivers of child marriage, which informed our previous Tanzania Ending Child Marriage strategic plan, and this provided a lot of guidance in terms of understanding in context how child marriage happened in different regions, and also to come up with the multi-sector approach in addressing child marriage. But also as an organization, we do a number of research in terms of baseline before we do different we implement different programs, but also the peer research. This has been very informative, especially with the harmful practices. For instance, we did one research in Mpopwa in 2017, I think, on the impact of teenage pregnancy. We wanted to understand in depth, and we had to title the research that I have no idea how I got pregnant, because most of the girls attested that the lack of sexual reproductive health rights and education was the main influencer of teenage pregnancy. So as we disseminated this, it really helped in strengthening the SRH programming within the country. Like many stakeholders were inspired to invest on sexual reproductive health rights. In terms of sectoral coordination, yes, this is a challenge in most cases, because even the beautiful strategies that we are having as a country, they are not 100% government funded. The CSO has to come in to support government meetings at different levels, and when we don't provide the support, these meetings do not happen. For instance, with the National Plan of Action on Ending Violence Against Women and Children, we have these committees that from village level to national level, and now the district level meetings, the ward level, they have to meet after every 3 months. So when they don't receive this support from stakeholders working on ground, sometimes this meeting may not happen. So this is still a challenge, and maybe we are open to learn from other countries on their partnership with the government, on how effective is it, on how do they have the government really commit to these strategies we have. We're also having the anti-FGM strategy, a 5-year strategy that came as a part of the National Plan of Action on Ending Violence Against Women and Children. But now getting to implementation, yeah, the problem is the same. On the school approach, yes, we do provide age-appropriate programming, especially with the sexual reproductive health rights, because not every message is fit for everyone. We have different age groups. For instance, for the primary school, you know, we teach them more on their body changes, on sexual violence, on how they should protect themselves, their rights in general. But coming to secondary school, these are more at adolescent age, so we teach them with a more comprehensive sexuality education. Like we discussed these matters more in depth. So we have manuals that fit in different contexts, from those who are in primary school and secondary school, but also for the young women, the teenage mothers and other groups. Also, my brother from Nepal, who was on the parenting education, and the bride price goes to the father, and this is where our men and boys engagement program comes from. We engage both parents. We have parental sessions, but we give special attention to men because we found out that these were left behind for a long time. You know, even in the communities, it's very easy to find women in different spaces compared to men. That's why we maybe provided special attention to men and boys, but we engage both parents. For the supporting people living with disability, yes, we don't leave anyone behind in our programming. We work with all girls, young women, young people, including those living with disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very thorough responses. People, help me. Kindly please clap for me as you stand. Clap for me from the top of your head. At the top of your head, because me, my hands don't reach together. Mzee Zefania, naomba unipigie makofi mzee wangu. Hivi nilivyosimama hapa nikipambana. And as you clap, keep clapping, don't stop. Cecilia, my dearest, where are you, Cecilia? Please come forward as you continue. Continue. I didn't say you stop. Okay, Cecilia. Jacqueline, walipia yuko wapi? Jacqueline na Jovin. Karibuni hapa mbele. Please, sijasema Okay, thank you very much. Cecilia, Jacqueline, Jovin. Okay, whoever is remaining, there is a gift that I will give the person who has clapped for me for the longest time. Please, Cecilia, Jovin. Thank you very much, people. Thank you. Have a seat. Actually, I already have 3 gifts to give. The first gift is to the person who is engaging more online. Kaki is leading so far. By tomorrow, he has a gift. Remember our hashtag, Power to Girls. East Africa Learning Summit 2022 is our hashtag. So I have a first gift there. I have a second gift to the person who I have seen has clapped for me for a long time. I also have a third gift. Good people, before we break for lunch, let us hear it from the young people. Let us hear from the youth and how they are engaging and how they think we should engage, discussing their issues and what it is they feel ought to be prioritized. Cecilia, I need you to take it away. I need the roving mic. Somebody speaking for me, my sanitizer, yes, it's one with a spray that's good.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Cecilia Ndegwa I work with the Msichana Empowerment Kuria, and for us to fully understand child marriage, I feel like we have to engage the young people. We have to hear straight from the young people. So I think before we start, we will have some videos that were made by young people from Kenya, which is Migori County in Kuria, and also in Tanzania from Tarime. So, and I'm joined by 2 young people. So after viewing the video, then they'll introduce themselves and we will start the discussion.
Another one? Oh, okay. We'll just continue with that. So I think from the videos, I'll take your reactions a little bit later. But for now, we will continue with, it's there? Okay. Let's just. As we continue, I think we'll continue seeing the pictures. So I'll have Jovi begin the introduction, tell us where you're from and who you work with.
Hello, my name is Jovin Juma. I'm a youth activist working with CDF Tarime. In this, I'll prefer using Kiswahili. So I'll be mixing Kiswahili with English. Thank you.
Karibu sana, Jackie.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm Mwanke Jacqueline from Mugori County, working with the Msichana Empowerment. Kuria as an activist. Thank you.
Karibu sana. So it's evident these are the young people we talk about engaging in matters ending child marriage. And specifically in this project, it was cross-border. So it was across the border, Migori and Tarime. And these are the young people, or a representation of the many young people we worked with in the two regions. So we will have a discussion on just to better understand why is it necessary to involve young people. Why is it necessary? I think from here we should be able to answer that and appreciate the impact young people bring in ending child marriage. So I'll just nitazungumza lugha zote for understanding purposes. So swali la kwanza ni watu young people, mbona watu vijana, mbona vijana wahusishwe katika kukomesha ndoa za kitoto labda? Kwa nini?
Okay, thank you. Vijana first, tunaona kwamba vijana ndio wanao the group of youth ambao wanakuwa affected first ni vijana kuanzia miaka 11 mpaka miaka 14, 15 under 18. Kwa hiyo kuwahusisha vijana hawa is because first wenyewe ndio wako affected more. Kwa hiyo tukiwahusisha inamaanisha wenyewe wana machungu na they are the victim, wana machungu na child marriage, wanakosa haki zao muhimu kama education, lakini pia hata wengine wanakosa parenting cares. Kwa hiyo kuwahusisha vijana ni kitu muhimu kwa sababu cha kwanza ndio wanaohudhurika, lakini pili hawa vijana wanaweza kawa wana message nzuri kwa sababu wanajua how it affects them. Mfano tumekuwa tukifanya kazi vijana ambao wameathirika moja kwa moja na ndoa za utotoni. Kwa hiyo wakitoa stories zao, jinsi ambavyo waliingia kwenye ndoa za mapema, jinsi ambavyo wameachana, jinsi ambavyo walikuwa, alafu baadaye akaona kwamba huyu mke sio niliyekuwa nampenda, nililazimishwa tu na baba kwamba ni oe kama kijana wa kiume. Kwa sababu hii biology imekuwa sana sana tunaangalia to one side of the ambao ni wanawake tu au wadada, kwamba wadada lakini kuna watoto wa kiume ambao wanalazimishwa kuoa mapema. Kwa hiyo hawa baadaye wanakuja nasema okay, huyu wakuwa mrembo wangu inasababisha hata kuwashirikisha vijana ni muhimu kwa sababu cha kwanza kikubwa, they are the affected ones. Thank you.
The youth are the affected ones. I really like that, and I'll pick it later. But to Jackie, because for a long time we say youth engagement, but how, you know, like we might just bring some youth and say, oh, you're here. Huh? That's fine, then be part of the process. So my question is, how meaningful is youth engagement in ending child marriage?
Okay, as my colleague has said that youth are the people that are affected. So when we engage youth fully to be the center of this fight, and you know that youth have that power and energy to walk into interior parts where maybe our parents cannot reach. So as we engage the youth, they go interior parts and also they involve. And also remember, youth as they are being used, maybe some are role model to the young ones. They can act as a role model and also pursue the impact that we want to impact to those children. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. And I think just to add, we should not only say we are engaging the youth. We should meaningfully engage the youth, you know, take the youth to these spaces, to have these discussions with people that actually matter. So I think engaging the youth does not mean kumpeleka mtu katika sehemu ambayo unasema huyu ni kijana, tumemhusisha, lakini muwezeshe kufika sehemu ambazo atafika, ataongea, sauti yake itasikika, and actually after being heard and being meaningfully engaged, they'll bring impact. Because I think engagement for a long time has just been looked at, bring some 5 young men or women and put them there, and we'll say the docket for young people is covered. But we actually mean to meaningfully engage the young people. So the other question I would place to the young people is, what are some of the activities that you have engaged in your communities towards ending child marriage?
First of all, I would like to say of meaningful youth engagement. Tukisema kumshirikisha kijana kikamilifu, tunaona tumekuwa tukizoea kwamba
we are used to things.
Yes, so they are given other people's idea ambayo pengine it's not direct the ones that touches the problem of youth. Kwa hiyo imekuwa pia ni tatizo. Kwa tukisemea meaningful youth engagement, tunamwona kijana from planning, implementing and even evaluation. Kwa hiyo pale hata yeye mwenyewe anaweza akaona kwamba amehusishwa, kwa sababu kijana ukimhusisha atatumia resources zake zote.
And if you involve them, they'll use all their resources. They'll not, as young men, we always say, we have nothing to lose. So if you engage him fully, you'll see a big impact. And we've seen what we have been getting involved in. For instance, those of us who are in Tarime.
Tumeweza kutumia radio, community radio sessions. So tumefika na kwenye hizi community radio sessions tumejaribu kuja na something new. Tumewahi kabla ya kufika kwenye hizo community radio session, tumekutana na programmers, tukawauliza okay, mambo ya ndoa za utotoni na FGM, watu wamekuwa pengine wakija kusemea haya mambo, je, ni nini ambacho hakijasemwa? So they were saying like, we want stories. Tunataka mtu ambaye amepitia hii kitu aje aseme. So the youth who have undergone child marriage, the youth who have undergone FGM are the ones who are representing. Kwa wakawa wanatoa education. Jinsi gani FGM ilimpelekea mpaka kwenye ndoa za utotoni. Jinsi gani ndoa za utotoni zilimsababisha kustagnate kwenye hali yake ya kiuchumi. Kwa hiyo ikawa very successful. Lakini apart from that, tumekuwa tukikutana into our wards. Tarime tuna wards, Tarime wards vijijini na mjini. Sasa huko Tarime mjini ukeketaji na ndoa za utotoni sio nyingi, lakini ukiangalia huko interior ndio kuna hivyo vitu. Kwa hiyo tumekuwa tukikutana kule, tukiraise awareness, ambapo tunapitia mikutano ya vijiji, lakini pia kwenye hiyo mikutano ya vijiji some of the youth walipata chance hata kuingia kwenye WDCs, Ward Development Committees, to speak of the youth. Tuliwahi kupata training moja ya tunaweza tukapresent vipi the issue of child marriage kwenye mambo ya budgeting. Wanakaa halmashauri wanapanga budget kuimplement kwenye halmashauri, lakini they don't see kwamba child marriage is a problem kwa sababu there's no person who can speak of it on their conference, on their meeting. So tulipata chance through the linkage that we had connected by CDF with service providers na local government officials. We are very thankful that through that tunaweza ona changes, lakini pia we have been connected with these clubs. We had these school clubs which were initiated by CDF. So through those clubs pia tumeweza kufika kwenye mashule. Tumefika kwenye shule tofauti tofauti, tukiwaambia watoto, as the former said, tumeona pia one of the thing ambao youth in Tarime wanakosa ni this sexual reproductive health and right education. Kwa hiyo wengi hawafiki kwenye vituo vya afya. Vituo vya afya vimebaki kwa watu ambao wanaumwa malaria, anaumwa kichwa, anaumwa miguu, lakini about their sexual health hamna anayeenda kufanya kitu kama hicho. Through this youth engagement tumeweza kutoa pia education basing on age, kama Euphemia alivyokuwa akisema kwamba kwa watoto tukiongelea social reproductive health, do they know their body? Do they know the changes that happen to their body? To parents, do they tell them what changes and the impact of those changes? Do they care? So tumekuwa tukiengage nao hivyo, na tumeona success kwa kuona kusikia hawa health providers wakituambia kwamba there's increased number of people going to health centers.
Right. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, one of the activity is radio dialogues, where we discuss the role of the community in ending child marriage, and there you find that the community, people are responding and asking questions on how we can come together as a community, because this thing needs togetherness for us to end it. And also I had a youth-focused discussion where I met adolescent girls in schools, and we discussed with them and creating awareness to them, like they should know themselves, like the way my colleague has said about know the changes in the body and know what is going on in the body and how to tackle it. And also creating awareness on maybe a girl is raped, how she's supposed to report or to do so that the case can go forward, and the person that has done it to be taken action. And also we had the young women, where the young women, most of the people that have been affected by the child marriage. So we talk with them, and they're going to they talk now. They're going to talk and influence the young ones that are coming out, so that they can know that when you engage yourself in marriage, when you're young, there are some consequences that you are going to face, and they might not be good to your life. And also we had intergenerational, where you meet with the stakeholders like children department, chiefs, elders, people from our community, and even the girls themselves, and we discuss together and see how we can end this child marriage, and we find that now girls are open there and to ask questions, and also criticize their parents. They are making them and forcing them to be married so that they can get the wealth. Yeah, thank you.
That's very interesting, because Jovi raised a very interesting point. When we are involving young people, like the budget advocacy meetings with young people, sometimes they're very shocked. This is how it works. We actually need to lobby to get money. It's very foreign for them. So I think for organizations involving young people means actually showing them the way, holding their hands and actually showing them this is how it's done. And if you do this, you'll get the resources you need. So some of the activities that young people are taken through are really, really insightful activities that would, if you're in the room, then you'll be very shocked, because some of these things, they're actually shocked that's the process. And I think a lot of that happens because they've only been engaged. We have not been fully engaged and meaningfully engaged in such processes. So I think the previous question leads me to the next question. Now that you've said there are very many activities we are doing in our various regions as young people in ending child marriage, the other question is, you cannot work alone. We can never work alone. So the next question is, how do you interact, or how do you bring on board the other community members in our regions, and how do you do that, and how is that effective? How effective was that?
Yeah, since kuna msemo unasema kidole kimoja
kivunji chawa.
Yes, kivunji chawa. We have been considering that kwa sababu we have used, kwanza we are thankful for this accelerator program. Tulikuwa connected, tulipewa mafunzo ambayo yalitupa mbinu za ushawishi, namna gani ya kuapproach government officials, namna gani utaweza kuapproach elders, yani how can you create your message into different contexts. Kwa hiyo this program ilitusaidia sisi kufanya moja kwa moja linkage with the government officials first, kwa sababu the local government officials, kwa sababu those are the first people we are working with. Ndio watu walio karibu kwanza, we so called them watendaji, village chairperson and all those. Kwa hiyo we connected as sisi tumekuwa connected direct na wao kwa sababu kwanza when cases come kuna watu hawajui hata offices zilipo, lakini they know the people who are working to stop or to end child marriage kwa sababu we live with them. Kwa hiyo they report to youth as if we are the police. Some of them come wanataka hapo action like uende ukamate and what. Lakini we think tulivyopewa hayo mafunzo tuliweza kujua namna gani ya kuweza ku connect dot kwamba when you receive a case you report it somewhere else, then you make follow up kwamba huyo ulipopeleka kesi yako, mfano kama ni kwa mwenyekiti, ukaipeleka wapi, au amebaki nayo au amefuatilia. Kwa hiyo that is one of the things. Lakini pia tumekuwa na sports and games activities, ambapo hii imekuwa ni moja ya sehemu kubwa sana ambayo imetulink kati ya vijana wa youth activists na vijana wengine wengi, lakini pia na jamii kwa ujumla, kwa sababu tukienda kwenye sport for example, mwaka jana mwezi wa 11 kulikuwa kuna kata moja ambayo muunganiko wa madhehebu waliitisha mkutano. Katika huo mkutano kukawa kuna michezo, wakatuomba, yani with the recognition of youth activists, wakaomba tuende tukatoe elimu. Go through that ilituchannel sisi na makanisa, ikatuchannel pamoja na the community at large. Thank you.
Jackie.
Okay, I ask you to pardon the question.
The question is, now that young people are doing a lot in their various communities, how do you link up with other members of community to ensure your outreach is not only effective, but it gets to a larger audience?
Okay, that one, when we are being trained, we are trained about stand up and speak out, and manual that help us to know how to undergo this. Like, okay, kuna msemo wa Kiswahili nasema umoja ni nguvu,
tengano ni udhaifu.
Asante sana. So tulitumia hiyo, like we went to the ground now, we communicated with our parents, and our parents also helped us to go in the road side, whereby when they meet their fellows, they talk about this, they tell them about my child is doing this and this, can you support them? And also we went forward and talking to the child department, being open to them and telling them we want to do this and this, can you help us so that we can end this victim that is going on into our community. And also to the religious leaders, and we talk to them, they know the Bible and they know the child is not supposed to be married before the age, so they also helped us to do that.
That's very interesting. The other thing that I noted that is very, very interesting is the stand-up speak-up manual. You meet with young people before going through the training, and you meet them after the training, you're wowed. So much has changed. They're more eloquent, they can express their ideas, they can say what they feel, what they think. It's very powerful to see. The other thing that I really thought was really interesting through this process is not only having the youth being part of the project, but having the youth actually steer the project. So they'll tell you, no, we think young people are really, online, everyone is online now. So the best way to catch more people or bring more people on board is make videos, for example. There's a digital training workshop in Tarime that was very, very, very impactful. And I think we haven't seen it. I think we'll see some of the videos. And it was just, it wasn't complex. The other thing about involving young people, you have to be very, very careful not to make things complex. Because once you make complex things, I think we switch off automatically. You're like, no, that's too much for me. So during the digital training workshop, you just use your phone, create a story, create the messaging or something you want addressed in your region, be it child marriage, be it FGM, your personal story. And as yesterday it was mentioned, the stories were so human. They were so relatable. It wasn't something foreign. It was so relatable to a point of you share some of the stories and you're shocked at the impact it brings. So I think involving young people is very, very crucial. And just as we just to carry on to what we had discussed, now that we're saying we have involved various community members, how do they take your actions? How are they responding to what you're taking to them? So I think I'll start with Jackie.
Okay, thank you. To the community, I can say it was somehow hard because they believe these are things that they have been doing it. And also maybe to the parents, they feel like this is a source of wealth. So as you go to the ground telling them that this thing you're doing is bad, it is going to affect your child, they see it like you're just joking about it. So it was very difficult for us to convince the parent that this thing that you're taking, the practice isn't good. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. First, one of the cause of child marriage is teenage pregnancy. So, and the community believes that wanaowapa mimba wadada ni vijana ambao ni vijana actually. Kwa hiyo first time it was difficult kwa sababu walikuwa wanaona okay, like nyinyi ndio mnaowapa mimba watoto wetu ambao mostly Tarime tunaona bodabodas na watu kama hao. But tulivyokuwa tukiendelea kufanya hizi education or giving education, the community come to realize that the youth now wants to change. Kwa sababu pia tulikutana na these bodabodas ambao kweli huko vijijini mtoto anatembea kilometers to school. Anatoka asubuhi sana nyumbani akienda shule. Hajanywa chai, akienda shule anakaa masaa mengi jala. Kwa hiyo it's easy, anakuwa convinced na huyo bodaboda kwa sababu atampeleka na kumrudisha bure, atamnunulia chips na vitu kama hivyo. Kwa hiyo tukaona first we have to convince them kwamba hivi vitu vinavyofanyika ni kupoteza future ya vijana wetu. Kwa hiyo it was hard first, lakini baadaye the community responded, wakaona kwamba okay, the youth had a thing to say. Lakini pia kwenye tulipopewa hizi skills ilitusaidia kwa sababu tulijua namna gani ya ku-approach going to parents, youth going to parents. We have one big problem to Korea community. Girls being accepted to speak in front of their fathers or in front of elders. Sasa sisi one of the approach tulikuwa tukitumia, tulikuwa tunatamani kwanza kwenye groups zetu wadada waongee before boys. Kwa hiyo ilikuwa very useful, iliwapa wenyewe nafasi ya ku accept them. Kwa hiyo we saw changes.
Naona muda wetu umeenda sana, lakini shortly for like 1 minute each, I would want you to share first a success, because there are so many success stories. So what are some of the achievements or successes you want to share, and then challenges that you have as we conclude. Just 1 minute.
Okay, as I say about the success, when I was doing the documentary, when I was teaching in a class, some years ago, we found that when you see the ratio of boys to girls in a class, you find boys are very many, while girls were maybe 10, 8. But when I was doing the documentary part of it, I got that the ratio to boys to girls was equal. Girls were very happy, and they were shocked to find that Ruby is one of the teachers in the school and could stand and teach because she has undergone everything that they think maybe it's very hard for a Korean girl to stand up and be educated and to be a useful person in the community. So they were shocked, and it changed their mind very much. One of the challenges that I got was that there was this hostility from the community. Like now we are interacting with what they love doing. Like in our community where I come from in Korea, they believe that a girl is a source of wealth in the family, and they don't believe in educating a girl. So they see when a girl is being educated, they're wasting their money. instead of educating a boy. So when you are advocating about them taking a girl child to the education, they feel like they are interfering with their culture. But I thank God through intervention, everything that we did, now they've accepted and girls are getting education. So
that's very powerful. That's very powerful. That's very powerful. I could speak till the end of the day, but it's very powerful at how young girls see a teacher called Robbie, and I'm Robbie, and that is just a mind shift. I can actually go to school and not go through the cut, not get married early, and become a teacher like Robbie, because it's possible. So that is very powerful, Joby.
Okay, thank you. To success, one of the greatest success that we have seen is youth gain trust from the community. Tumekuwa sasa tukiona cases, watu wanakuja kuripoti kwa the activists. Wanakuja kuripoti kwamba mtoto wangu anataka au mtoto wangu amepewa mimba, au mtoto wangu anataka kukeketwa na shangazi yake. Shangazi yake amekuja kumchukua, anataka kapeleke kukeketwa. Kwa hiyo imetuonesha kwamba we have gained trust to the community. Kwa hiyo imeonyesha kwamba hii kitu tunafanya, it is very important. Lakini challenges, one of the challenge is we have all spoken it. One of the thing ambayo sisi tumeipata kwa sababu ya ukubwa wa sehemu tulionayo ni accessibility, jinsi gani ya kuweza kufikia into those places. Lakini pia tumepata challenge moja ya kukosa namna gani ya kuweza how can I say it, dialect. For example, CDF, I speak of CDF, I'm sorry. At CDF, at youth, tuna zile identities, so like t-shirts, what. So some of people were asking, who are you? We tell them, we are youth activists. Kwa hiyo wana try to challenge us by showing them identity. Nakumbuka siku moja tumeenda kijiji kimoja, tulikuwa na bahati nzuri, tulikuwa na people from GNB, nafikiri kwa wamekuja kufanya monitoring. Then they were asking, so it was a little bit challenge. Lakini pia one of the challenge was limited time to implement this program. We had a very limited time. Tulikuwa na mambo mengi ambayo tulitamani tuyafanye. Tulipewa training nyingi, for example, ya jinsi gani ya ku-approach through games, through talents that we have. So we didn't show all of that because of the limited time. Thank you.
Right, as I finish, because this is an ongoing conversation and it's a very huge conversation to have, but as I finish, young people are really willing to be part of the change we want to see in the society, and young people will bring change if only we hold our hands. Because from implementing this project, it has been so beautiful to see how young people are actually giving their all. As Jovi had said, we have nothing to lose. We want to see better communities. We want to see better societies for our girls, for our young women. So I think as we sit, involve young people meaningfully, hold our hands, and yes, we can do this. Thank you so much, Jovi and Jacqueline.
It is always inspiring. It is always so inspiring to hear it from the young people and what they are doing and how motivated and inspired they are. I don't know whether you agree with me, because we are just talking by proxy. They are the ones, isn't it? So a big clap again, and please keep it up. Our people need you, this continent needs you, our communities need you, so you have to keep up to convert more youths into thinking the way you do. Asanteni sana. We will continue with this conversation. Good people, we have a packed session in the afternoon that is going to be crowned by a very nice session in the evening. Imagine me, I'm nice like that. So we will work very hard in the afternoon, and then in the evening, we will sit back now and enjoy. You know, we have the solidarity night. But in the afternoon, right after lunch, at 2 sharp, our colleagues are joining us, making the presentations from the UK. So the time is really limited. If we said 2 o'clock, it is 2 o'clock. Jamani, kuna colleagues wetu wanatolea presentations baada ya lunch, saa 8 kamili, ambapo hatuwezi kuchelewa. Hatuwezi kudelay. Tukidelay, itakuwa tunawakosea sana, manake kuna time difference. Sawa? Kwa hivyo nawaomba sana, if we can eat in 30 minutes, na siku is possible. Okay, 35. If you can eat in 35 minutes, jaribuni tu, so that by 2 p.m. nawaomba sana. Alafu please I request, msifanye nianze kukimbia kuwafuata kule dining hall. Mguu pia mbovu. So please, so that I don't run back and forth looking for you at the dining. I can still do it. But yeah, don't make me, kunajua nimeshafanya sana the whole week hapa, eh? So please, I know the time is short. Our colleagues online, we are going to break for lunch. We wish you a wonderful lunch. And we are also going to go for hours. And then at 2 o'clock, we need to be here. But good people, we have a session in the evening at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. In this session, if you feel like you want to come and change into your Africa best, it will be an added value. Remember, I still have the gifts. Okay? If you want to change into your Africa best, but most importantly, I want you to come with open minds and open hearts. I want open hands and open hearts so that we can build into our solidarity night. Thank you very much. With your permission, GMD, we break for lunch so that we are able to follow into our session. Thank you. Jipigieni makofi. Clap for yourselves. Not for me, for yourselves. Thank you very much. Let's try and make sure that we can try to be here by 2 so that we don't keep our colleagues virtually joining us waiting for so long. Thank you very much. Continue tweeting. We are following to see the highest tweet. Of course, Kaki has already taken the first prize. You never know, you might take more and more prizes. I hope all of you have driver's licenses. You might win a car and you need to drive back home to your country or something like that. So keep tweeting, okay? You might, Princess, trust me.